Rain lashed down on the secluded mountain estate, its traditional architecture shrouded in mist and storm. A group of warriors, soaked and seeking refuge, approached the main gate. One called out, asking if anyone was present as rain hammered the ground, reflecting the gloomy sky. Suddenly, a young boy appeared from the shadows of the entryway, standing silently before the drenched men. They paused, observing him. Their leader, a stern man with striking red eyes, seemed surprised to find anyone inhabiting the clearly shut-down martial academy. Addressing the boy as young warrior, he politely requested shelter for the night to escape the downpour. The boy remained quiet for a moment, regarding the strangers with cautious eyes. Who were these people, he wondered? They addressed him, a mere child, with such courtesy. Perhaps they mistook him for a young guardian of this defunct place. Still, it didn't feel like bad people. He clasped his hands politely, explaining that he had only settled in this abandoned academy a few years prior himself. They were welcome to stay anywhere they wished, he informed them, gesturing vaguely. However, he requested they avoid the specific pavilion he was currently using. The leader bowed his head slightly in gratitude, thanking the young warrior for his hospitality and promising they would respect his space. He turned to his men, instructing them clearly to find shelter elsewhere and not to disturb the boy near his pavilion. His warriors affirmed their understanding in unison. As the men dispersed into the rain-swept courtyard to find suitable spots, the boy noticed the insignia on their uniforms, the character Fortang. He briefly wondered about their clan identity, but decided he had more pressing matters to attend to. He gave a small bow and turned, heading back towards his pavilion. It was dinner time for the kids, after all. A cheerful grin spread across his face. He practically skipped inside, announcing happily that it was time to eat. He approached a large ceramic jar, lifting the lid with an impish smile. Inside, several large crickets chirped, unaware of their fate. He scooped up the jar, murmuring that he was almost late and they must be starving. He carried the crickets over to another, larger jar, revealing its inhabitant, a sizable black earth tiger tarantula. This large species, native to Hainan, could grow up to 20 centimeters, its stripes resembling a black tiger. He picked up a cricket with chopsticks, offering it to the tarantula he called Black. He mused on what might have happened if Black hadn't been there for him before. The tarantula snatched the cricket eagerly. Seeing the creature, once the size of a fingernail, now grown so large after 2 molts filled the boy with genuine happiness. With Black satisfied, he turned his attention elsewhere, walking towards a wooden medicine cabinet lining the wall. He opened one of the drawers to reveal another pet nestled in dry grass, a bewangling cave gecko. This native species, characterized by the distinct stripes on its body and tail, was incredibly cute in his opinion. He picked up another cricket, reflecting that creatures like this gecko were hard to obtain in his previous life due to his lack of funds, though now they seemed common. Watching them thrive was one of his current life's simple joys. As he offered the cricket, the gecko suddenly lunged and bit his finger, letting out a surprisingly fierce screech. The boy yelped, startled more than hurt. "That stings, you little punk," he thought, a stark contrast to a real bite he remembered. That memory surfaced unbidden. He recalled his past life before inhabiting this young body. He had been a streamer, a very successful one. Known as Spicy Fabre, a professional biologist with over 1 million subscribers, his main content focused on poisonous insects and animals. The trouble began during the live broadcast celebrating that 1 million subscriber milestone. He had promised to show the viewers one of the 10 most dangerous vipers in the world, the infamous black mamba. However, the trip to Africa to find it had proven fatal. Back home, viewers asked where the snake was, some teasingly accusing him of faking it. He tried to explain that black mambas weren't exactly common finds, needing a break from the fruitless search. Exhausted, he complained about his inability to locate the viper, while the chat speculated wildly. Then, he'd finally spotted the black mamba he'd searched so hard for. It was curled up nonchalantly atop his refrigerator. Before he could react, it struck, biting him instantly. The live stream captured his final moments as the venom took hold. And then, nothing. He died. Back in the present, staring at the gecko, still clinging stubbornly to his finger, he sighed. All that effort searching Africa, only for the snake to be hiding on the fridge the whole time. What a way to go. Outside his pavilion door, unseen by him, one of the Tang warriors stood silently in the pouring rain, listening. A hesitant knock sounded at the boy's pavilion door, followed by the Tang leader's voice asking if the young warrior was present. Startled, the boy cracked the door open, peering out with wide eyes and asking if something was amiss. The leader simply wished to express gratitude for the shelter and extended an invitation for the boy to join them for dinner. He mentioned they had managed to catch a deer. The boy's eyes widened further, a blush dusting his cheeks as he stammered, questioning if it was really a deer. Internally, his mind screamed, "Meat! Real meat!" Tears welled up as he thought ruefully about his recent diet, which felt like leftovers from a survival show, consisting mainly of snakes and lizards. He quickly composed himself, clasping his hands together and eagerly stating he would be incredibly grateful if they could share it with him. The leader chuckled warmly, gesturing for him to follow. Later that night, under a bright moon, a large fire illuminated the courtyard, the captured deer roasting slowly over the flames. The boy sat nearby, utterly captivated by the sight and smell, a thin line of drool escaping his lips, much to the leader's quiet amusement. Noting the meat still needed time, the leader suggested they talk for a bit, asking if he might ask the boy a few questions while they waited. Embarrassed by his obvious hunger, the boy quickly agreed, urging the elder to proceed. Sitting comfortably by the crackling fire, the leader inquired if the boy truly lived alone in the vast Hainan mountain range, and also asked his age. The boy hesitated before guessing he was around 14 or 15 years old. The leader raised an eyebrow at the uncertainty. Thinking quickly, the boy explained that he'd hit his head accidentally as a younger child and hadn't remembered much clearly since then. The leader acknowledged that such unfortunate things could indeed happen. He then gently pressed, asking if the boy had truly been managing all by himself since then. The boy confirmed this, adding with a slightly forced smile that, lacking any real talent, he sustained himself by catching snakes and selling their valuable skins. The leader remarked on the inherent danger of such an occupation, but the boy brushed it off, claiming he was quite used to it by now. Just then, an older, white-haired man approached them, carrying a steaming portion of the cooked deer meat. Addressing the boy kindly, he offered the food first, noting the young warrior must be very hungry. The boy accepted the generous piece with heartfelt thanks, beaming as he admitted it had been far too long since he'd eaten proper meat. He didn't hesitate, taking a large, satisfying bite. Pure bliss spread across his face. This, he thought, was true happiness. The leader and the elder exchanged amused glances, pleased to see the young warrior eating so heartily. As the boy savored his meal, the leader asked him to listen for a moment. He explained that their group was searching for something specific, something rather strange, and wondered if the boy had encountered anything unusual during his time there. The boy paused mid-chew, considering carefully if he should mention anything. The elder then spoke up, addressing the leader as patriarch and suggesting that since they owed the boy a small favor for his hospitality, it would be all right to tell him. He reasoned that the boy likely wouldn't understand the implications, lived in isolation, and therefore wouldn't spread the word. The patriarch conceded that his father was right. Leaning slightly closer, the patriarch began, revealing they had come to these mountains seeking a particular centipede, one distinguished by a blue spot on its body. The boy stopped eating, stunned by the description. A blue-spotted centipede? The patriarch affirmed this, calling it the blue spot centipede and adding that it was remarkably large, perhaps large enough for the boy to have noticed it. The boy nervously asked just how large it was. The patriarch stroked his mustache thoughtfully before stating that a fully grown adult could likely swallow someone of the boy's size whole. Horror dawned on the boy's face. A person swallowing centipede? He internally reeled, wondering if he hadn't just traveled back in time, but had landed in some kind of bizarre fantasy world filled with giant monsters. The patriarch noticed his reaction and offered a small apology for frightening him. The elder quickly interjected, reassuring the boy not to worry. Their purpose was specifically to catch that creature. The boy, still processing the size, innocently asked if they planned to catch it and then raise it as a pet. The elder paused, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Both he and the patriarch then burst into laughter, the elder exclaiming that raising a blue spot centipede sounded like a hilariously interesting, if suicidal, endeavor. Once the laughter subsided, the elder clarified their true intention. They needed the centipede to use as medicine. The boy blinked, surprised. Medicine? His internal assessment shifted again. Maybe they weren't traders or hunters, but dealing in exotic medicinal ingredients? He couldn't fathom how a giant centipede qualified as medicine. The elder's expression grew somber as he explained that his granddaughter was confined to her bed, suffering from a severe illness. He elaborated that the inner core, a crystal formed by accumulated chi in powerful creatures, of that specific blue spot centipede, was reputed to be the only cure that could save her life, hence their desperate search. The patriarch confirmed with a heavy heart that it was indeed his daughter who was ill. The boy listened intently, his expression softening. He still doubted the medicinal properties of centipede core, but he understood the desperation driving these men. Parents would do anything for their children. He felt a pang of sympathy, even for the giant centipede destined for dissection, but resolved to help these men who had shown him kindness and shared their precious meat. He began cautiously, "That centipede." The patriarch leaned forward instantly, asking with urgent hope if the boy had seen it. The boy shook his head, replying no, he hadn't seen that specific one. The patriarch's face fell slightly in disappointment. However, the boy continued, a thoughtful glint appearing in his eyes, tapping his chin. "Although I don't know anything about a blue spot." He paused, a sly, confident smirk slowly spreading across his face. "I think I know where we might find it." Though he, Spicy Fabre, had met an ironic end via snakebite in his previous life, his expertise in the realm of poisonous animals remained unparalleled. Out of the world's roughly 8.7 million species, he knew the approximately 20,000 identified as poisonous like the back of his hand, their details meticulously cataloged in his mind. He mentally summoned his vast knowledge, recalling that centipedes were certainly no exception. When it came to the creepy and the crawly, especially the venomous kind, Spicy Fabre knew his stuff. The information was all readily available in his mental encyclopedia of centipedes. Mentally accessing his vast internal encyclopedia, the boy flipped through virtual pages of knowledge, his eyes glowing faintly in the dimly lit space. A confident smirk touched his lips. He had found it. He turned back to the waiting Tang leaders, giving a knowing wink, and stated he might just know the whereabouts of the giant centipede they sought. Both the patriarch and the elder reacted with startled hope, asking him with barely contained eagerness if he was serious and where they could find it. The boy tapped his chin thoughtfully, then inquired about the specific areas they had already searched and the times of day they had conducted their hunt. The patriarch consulted a mental map, explaining they had covered the regions north and east of the academy, primarily during daylight hours, with a particular focus on the northern riverside. The boy nodded slowly, understanding dawning. No wonder they couldn't find it, he thought. He told them that, given their search parameters, it was quite obvious they wouldn't have succeeded. The elder looked puzzled, asking what he meant by "of course." The boy cheerfully offered to elaborate. He launched into a brief explanation. Centipedes, belonging to the Arthropoda phylum and Calopoda class, cover wide territories. Being cold-blooded, they require shelter to regulate temperature and humidity. He added an interesting fact. Unlike many insects with waterproof layers, centipedes possess weak waterproofing and pores on their shells. Therefore, contrary to popular belief, they don't actually prefer overly wet places. It was an animal needing high humidity but disliking direct wetness, yet unable to survive long without water. Talk about high maintenance like some women. Consequently, he concluded the blue-spotted centipede was unlikely to be found deep in jungles or right by the river. The elder stroked his beard, looking genuinely surprised. He confessed he'd always assumed centipedes favored damp places like rottenwood cracks. The boy acknowledged that smaller centipedes might be found there, but reminded them they were hunting a big one. For a creature of that size, hiding effectively in dense jungle or among river rocks would be difficult. The two leaders listened intently, absorbing the new information. The patriarch, now revitalized with hope, urged the boy to tell them the location, promising a generous reward if his information proved correct. A sly smile spread across the boy's face. He pointed definitively. The west, he declared. He elaborated that they should investigate the Rocky Mountains looming to the west. He explained that centipedes often rest under warm rocks during the day and become active, roaming at night, gesturing towards the moonlit, craggy peaks in the distance. Following the boy's advice, the Tang clan shifted their search to the western mountains. Under the silvery glow of the moon, the patriarch stood vigilantly atop a high cliff, surveying the terrain, his expression unreadable. Soon, a scout reported back, expressing doubt. They had found nothing, questioning if the young warrior might have been mistaken. The patriarch considered this, then decided to call it a day, instructing the man to fire the signal arrow and gather the search teams. A bright flare shot upwards, illuminating the night sky, its light tracing an arc over the desolate mountains. Later, the weary warriors gathered around a small campfire, exhaustion etched on their faces. One grumbled about their inability to find the damned centipede, though another conceded that the young warrior had seemed quite sharp. The patriarch sat silently by the fire, his thoughts drifting to his daughter, Wan. She was considered the most exceptional talent in the history of the Tang family, yet now her life hung by a thread. Had the heavens truly given up on her? Suddenly, a warrior announced the Grand Patriarch's return. The elder strode into the camp with his contingent, looking equally weary. The patriarch greeted his father, who inquired if the search had failed again that day. The patriarch confirmed it had. He asked if his father's team had fared any better, but the elder shook his head dismally. The elder sighed, worrying aloud that Wan could probably only hold on for 3 months at most, and their window to find the cure, perhaps only 10 days, was closing fast. A heavy silence fell over the two men. The patriarch suggested exploring the south the next day, reasoning they hadn't found any traces elsewhere. The elder agreed glumly, repeating that they hadn't found any traces. Then he froze. His eyes widened in sudden, startling realization. "Nothing at all," he exclaimed, striking his forehead. He couldn't believe he'd missed it. This had to be the right place. The patriarch, confused, asked if his father had sensed something. "No," the elder clarified. "Just as you said, I didn't sense any trace or presence." He leaned in, his voice low but intense. "Because there's no trace, I have a sense that it's here." He pressed the point, asking if, in the past 3 days, they had found any sign of life on this rocky mountain. None at all? Not even animal droppings or territorial markings? The patriarch's eyes widened as the implication struck him. "Exactly," the elder declared, gesturing broadly at the empty mountain around them. Did it make sense for such a vast area to be completely devoid of animal life? The patriarch murmured the phrase, "a territorial animal." The elder nodded grimly. The other creatures had either fled this area entirely, or they had become food for the centipede. He clapped his son firmly on the shoulder. The blue-spotted centipede was definitely here. Now, finally, they could save Wan. Relief washed over the patriarch's face as he clenched his fist. Just as hope surged, the ground beneath them began to shake violently. Warriors cried out in alarm, stumbling as the tremors intensified. What on earth was happening? The campfire erupted, rocks cracked and exploded upwards, and the earth itself seemed to split open. A massive, armored, dark red leg slammed down from the fissure, shaking the mountain. More legs followed, carving through rock as warriors scrambled back in terror. One man, face pale with sweat, pointed frantically upwards, his comrades frozen in shock. The elders stared, aghast, as the monstrous creature emerged, its segmented, armored body heaving itself from the depths. Towering over them, radiating malice, stood the blue, spotted centipede. Miles away, back in the relative quiet of his pavilion, the boy was jolted awake by the earth-shattering roar and tremors. "What a mess," he muttered, annoyed. Just how big was that centipede to cause such a ruckus? He told them where to look, but they seemed intent on turning the whole mountain upside down. He lay back, pondering the creature the patriarch had described, a centipede big enough to swallow him whole. A sudden, undeniable thrill coursed through him. He really wanted to see it. Under the pale moonlight filtering through the clouds, the aftermath of the battle was stark. The massive blue-spotted centipede lay defeated, its segmented body sprawled across the rocky ground, surrounded by exhausted and wounded Tang warriors. From the creature, they had successfully extracted the coveted prize, the iridescent blue spot centipede's inner core, pulsing with faint blue light within a small wooden box. The Grand Patriarch held the box, tears streaming down his face, overcome with emotion. They could finally save Juan. His son, the Patriarch, approached, suggesting his father take the core and the uninjured warriors back to Sichuan immediately. He solemnly quoted a Tang family creed, reminding his father that grudges are carved in blood, but favors are carved on stone. They remembered both. The elder paused, realization dawning. He had almost forgotten in his relief. They still had unfinished business here. He agreed it was right to properly thank the young warrior and give him the promised reward. The patriarch confirmed he had sent the injured for treatment and would visit the young warrior himself. He mused that perhaps the boy might be curious about the outcome of their hunt. Meanwhile, back at the pavilion, the boy sat meditating, though his focus was elsewhere. He was contemplating the strange turn of events. Overnight, he had somehow become the designated parent to a cluster of newly hatched blue-spotted centipedes, currently resembling tiny, adorable, bunny-eared caterpillars clinging tenaciously to his clothes and hair. He recalled finding their eggs. After returning from his scouting mission, he'd cleaned the 3 eggs he retrieved and placed them on his nightstand. When he awoke, they had all hatched, looking surprisingly cute, much faster than he anticipated. Those things looked less like baby murder bugs and more like something you'd win at a carnival booth. He tried gently shooing them off, but they seemed to have imprinted on him, refusing to detach. This predicament stemmed from his excursion the previous night. Driven by the irresistible curiosity of his spicy Fabre persona, he couldn't resist checking out the lair of a creature large enough to swallow him whole. He had located the blue-spotted centipede's hideout and cautiously entered the dark cave. Inside, he'd been attacked by crickets the size of human fists, dropping his torch in the scuffle. He'd scrambled out, coughing and gasping, but relieved to find the 3 large, smooth eggs he'd hastily stuffed into his sack were unharmed. He considered it lucky the rain had stopped, or he might not have managed to retrieve even one. A sudden noise snapped him from his recollection. This wasn't the time for reminiscing. He needed to get back quickly and properly clean the eggs. He secured his sack tightly, vowing to his future children that their Hyung would give them a bath soon. Although he missed seeing the live adult centipede, he was glad he'd saved the remaining eggs. "Okay, guys," he muttered, addressing the clingy babies. "Can you give me some personal space, please?" They wouldn't need food until after their second molt, but having them stuck to him constantly was slightly inconvenient. Then, an idea struck him. If he went into the water, their aversion to wetness should make them fall off. Smirking, he decided it was time for a shower. Just as the boy headed off, the Tang patriarch arrived outside the pavilion. He walked across the courtyard and called out, asking if the young warrior was inside. Receiving no reply, he hesitated, then lightly pushed the door open, announcing his entry. He stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room filled with neatly arranged herbs, jars, and various medicinal tools. He wondered if the boy was perhaps a medical practitioner. He noticed the cabinet with the drawers, but quickly reprimanded himself. It felt rude to snoop in the boy's room without permission. Deciding to return later, he turned to leave. As he reached the door, a faint rustling sound caught his ear. Curious, he turned back, his gaze falling upon the jars near the wall. He cautiously approached one and paused, then carefully lifted the lid. His eyes widened in shock. Inside sat the large black earth tiger tarantula. His gaze flickered to the medicine cabinet. He opened a drawer and found the bewangling cave gecko staring back. He quickly checked other containers, finding various insects, eggs, and dried snake skins. Unbelievable. Was this boy raising poisonous animals and their offspring? Even the Tang clan, experts in poisons, primarily focused on extraction, breeding and raising such creatures, especially from eggs, was a feat they hadn't mastered. He had thought finding the core was their lucky break, but now he realized the true fortune was encountering this young warrior himself. Just then, the boy reappeared outside, spotting the patriarch. "Elder," the boy called out, running over, noticing the man's arm was bandaged. He asked anxiously if the elder was hurt. The patriarch waved off the concern, stating it was nothing serious, just as the boy began to say he had something important to tell him. Suddenly, the patriarch froze, his eyes widening as he sensed a powerful, malevolent energy emanating from the pavilion behind the boy. Both turned to look as a swirling vortex of dark purple energy erupted within the room, coalescing into a menacing, shadowy figure with a terrifying, sharp-toothed grin. "Young warrior, please run," the patriarch yelled, shoving the boy back. The demonic figure lunged with terrifying speed, striking the patriarch with brutal force, but managed to block a follow-up blow aimed at the boy, coughing blood. The patriarch crashed to the ground. The demon, Tak Unyang, grabbed the boy effortlessly, lifting him off the ground. He laughed maniacally, sneering that he'd heard the Tang clan bastards were in Hainan, finding it amusing that the son of the myriad poisons divine sovereign was injured and alone. The patriarch struggled, demanding to know why Tak Unyang was targeting them. Tak Unyang gestured to his disfigured face and glowing red fist, identifying himself as the Blood Hand Rakshasa, Tak Unyang, revealing that the patriarch's father was responsible for his current state. The patriarch recalled hearing Tak Unyang had been struck by a poison palm and fallen off a cliff, presumed dead, yet here he stood. He pleaded desperately, stating the young warrior had nothing to do with their feud and offering his own life in exchange for the boy's freedom. Tak Unyang scoffed, declaring he would slaughter anyone even remotely connected to the Tang clan. The patriarch cursed the demon, realizing with horror that Tak Unyang had no intention of letting the boy go. Tak Unyang tightened his grip, choking the life out of the boy, growling for him to die. The boy gasped, weakly pleading for mercy, his vision blurring. Suddenly, glowing eyes flashed in the darkness around Tak Unyang's hand. The baby centipedes clinging to the boy surged forward, biting into the demon's flesh with surprising ferocity. Tak Unyang roared in pain and shock, momentarily stunned by the attack from the tiny creatures. He snarled, questioning how mere centipedes could possibly harm him, but then choked as the venom took effect, dark liquid foaming at his mouth. He stumbled back, collapsing lifelessly to the ground. The boy stared, utterly bewildered. He died. He looked at the patriarch, nervously pointing at the body. This is a bad person, right? The patriarch could only stare back, equally stunned, before a slow, amazed grin spread across his face. This young warrior, who commanded such creatures, wasn't just a guest. He had to become a member of the Tang clan. A few days after Tak Unyang's sudden demise, the courtyard of the abandoned academy bore the scars of the battle. Inside the boys' pavilion, a quiet stillness settled. Wei Soryong tended to the recovering Tang patriarch, Tang Keelsan, while several tiny, bunny-eared centipedes crawled curiously on his clothes. The patriarch weakly expressed his gratitude, but Soryong deflected the thanks, inquiring instead about the location of the other warriors so he could check on them. He hesitated, worrying about leaving the injured man alone, especially since calling a doctor seemed impossible here. But Keel-san reassured him, stating he just needed a few days of rest to recover. Soryong internally marveled at the man's calm demeanor despite having coughed up so much blood earlier, mentally chastising him for downplaying what seemed like a critical condition. Keel-san simply smiled faintly, insisting he was fine, attributing his resilience to being a martial artist. Soryong stared, the term echoing strangely. He asked, wide-eyed, if that meant Keel-san was the kind who could fly around and shoot fireballs. Keel-san admitted that while not everyone could manage such feats, it was a somewhat accurate, if simplified, description. Awesome, Soryong thought. This confirmed his suspicion. This truly was a different world, because house-sized centipedes and flying fireball users certainly didn't exist back home. Keel-san, regaining some strength, formally acknowledged that Soryong had saved his life. Despite his weakened state, he introduced himself properly as Tang Keel-san of the renowned Sichuan Tang clan, prompting Soryong to give his own name, Wei Soryong. Keel-san commented that Small Dragon, Soryong, was a fitting name. He then asked if he could pose some questions to the boy, who readily agreed. Keel-san pointed to the peculiar creatures still clinging to Soryong, asking if they were indeed poisonous centipedes. Soryong confirmed they were young blue-spotted centipedes. The patriarch bolted upright in bed, startling Soryong and demanding to know how and where the boy had managed to tame them. He also recalled seeing other poisonous creatures in a room earlier and asked if Soryong was raising those as well. Soryong sheepishly admitted it was a long story, and Keel-san eagerly encouraged him to share it. Soryong began his tale, starting with finding the blue-spotted centipede eggs in the creature's lair. Keel-san interrupted, astonished, verifying that Soryong had raised them from eggs himself. Soryong confirmed this, adding he'd even roughly predicted their hatching time. The patriarch was flabbergasted, asking how such prediction was possible. Soryong paused his story, went to his medicine cabinet, and returned holding 2 geckos. He presented the first, explaining it was an ordinary striped lizard with yellow body stripes and white tail stripes. Then he showed the second, noting he had bred 2 lizards with prominent white tail stripes, resulting in this 2-colored variant. Keel-san stared, speechless, before stammering if Soryong meant he had actually created this specific color pattern through breeding. Soryong beamed, proudly asking if it wasn't pretty. The patriarch swallowed hard, then leaned in intensely, asking if this meant Soryong could theoretically breed creatures with strong poison to create even more potent venom. Soryong considered this, acknowledging it was technically possible, though difficult to determine which individuals possess stronger poison to begin with. But the mere possibility ignited Keel-san's excitement. He grabbed Soryong's shoulders, fervently urging the boy to become part of his family. He promised the full backing of the Tang clan, training in their martial arts, access to countless elixirs, herbs, and any poison Soryong could desire. He painted a picture of Soryong capturing legendary poisonous creatures, and even began to offer his daughter, one of the famed 3 flowers of Central Plains, as further enticement before Soryong cut him off sharply. "Hold on," Soryong exclaimed, demanding clarification. Keel-san, slightly flustered, chuckled, misinterpreting Soryong's shock as youthful interest in his daughter, before Soryong impatiently waved that aside, yelling to forget the flowers. He was captivated by the mention of the 10 great poisonous creatures of Central Plains, excitedly asking if they were as amazing as the blue-spotted centipede. Keel-san confirmed they were indeed incredible, clarifying that while impressive, the blue-spotted centipede ranked lower than the legendary 10 greats. He described wonders like giant scorpions and golden frogs, assuring Soryong that whatever he imagined, the reality was far grander. Keel-san smiled, seeing he had struck a chord. He had successfully persuaded the boy, whose eyes now shone with avid curiosity. 2 days later, the Tang clan members gathered again within the academy grounds. One warrior recounted the tale of the battle, expressing disbelief that the blood-hand Rakshasa, Tak Anyang, had actually appeared. Keel-san explained to the assembled group that Tak Anyang had evidently been hiding and honing his martial arts, reaching a level comparable to the Grand Patriarch himself. This revelation shocked the warriors. They immediately jumped to the conclusion that Keel-san must have personally defeated such a powerful foe, likely achieving the legendary realm of 10,000 poisons in the process, and began congratulating him enthusiastically. Keel-san chuckled weakly, correcting their assumption. He hadn't reached that realm. He revealed it was a young warrior, Wei Soryong, who had killed Tak Anyang. The warriors turned to Soryong in unison, one grabbing his hands and thanking him profusely for saving the patriarch, asking bewilderedly if he was some kind of elder who had undergone rejuvenation. Keel-san smoothly intervened to clear up the misunderstanding, prompting Soryong to hesitantly call forth his companions. The warriors watched, confused, as the tiny, cute centipedes peeked out from Soryong's clothing. Recognizing them, one warrior gasped. Keel-san explained that these young blue-spotted centipedes were responsible for Tak Anyang's demise. The warriors erupted, questioning the poison's potency and Soryong's incredible talent in taming such creatures. Keel-san added that he had invited Soryong to join their clan, though the boy was still considering the offer, which prompted the warriors to eagerly encourage Soryong to accept the great opportunity. Keel-san then rose, looking thoughtful, stating he needed to get up as he felt he shouldn't be late. Soryong asked if he was still searching for something. Keel-san explained his lingering concern regarding Tak Anyang, detailing the demon's horrific martial art, the 1,000 Ghost Poison Claw, which required sacrifices of human blood and bone marrow to advance. Soryong looked appalled at the description of such a crazy technique. Keel-san declared their duty to find any secret scrolls or disciples Tak Anyang might have left behind, ensuring such a cruel art never returned to plague the martial world, adding they also needed to rescue any potential captives. He then formally asked Soryong if he would lend his aid, given his familiarity with Hanem's geography. Soryong considered the request, one of the baby centipedes chirping softly on his head. Joining the Tang clan felt like accepting a lifelong job offer. He mused internally that it was standard practice to check out the company atmosphere and the boss's character during an internship. Anyway, he agreed to help them as soon as Keel-san felt better. The patriarch and his men were overjoyed. Soryong smiled, stating that since it involved saving lives, he should naturally help. Secretly, however, he resolved to use this internship as a chance to thoroughly vet the Sichuan Tang clan. After all, he thought, skilled people always conduct a reverse interview on their potential employers. A few days passed while Tang Keel-san recovered from his injuries. Once able, he led Wei Soryong and a contingent of Tang warriors to a village near the abandoned academy, hoping to find Tak Anyang's base or any remaining disciples. They inquired with the village chief if any residents had gone missing recently. The chief pondered, mentioning that perhaps 1 or 2 people vanished into the jungle each year, but confirmed there were no unusual or periodic disappearances. Keel-san stroked his mustache thoughtfully. Thanking the chief for his time, the patriarch politely took his leave, the chief expressing honor at assisting the famed Tang clan. They departed the village, having found no significant leads. As they walked through the woods, Soryong mused aloud, asking if there was anything special about the village they just left. Keel-san admitted that since Tak Anyang had revealed himself near the academy, he had suspected the demon's base might be nearby, but finding it was proving difficult. Soryong agreed. It was strange how few traces the demon had left behind. He tried recalling Tak Anyang's exact words during their confrontation, the demon's sneering face flashing in his memory. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He asked Keel-san if he remembered what Tak Anyang had said upon appearing. The patriarch admitted he didn't recall the specifics, distracted by the sudden attack. Soryong reminded him that Tak Anyang had explicitly stated he heard the Tang clan had arrived in Hainan. The implication, Soryong explained, was that someone must have informed the demon of their presence. Therefore, Soryong proposed brightly, They should retrace the Tang clan's path through Hainan, showing around a composite sketch, or rather a portrait, of Tak Enyang. Surely, they'd find an informant that way. Keel San and his men looked momentarily stunned by the simple, yet brilliant, deduction. One warrior exclaimed that Soryang was incredible. Tak Enyang must have heard about them from someone who saw their group travel. Realizing things had just become much simpler, they decided to depart immediately to follow this new lead. Their journey took them towards another village nestled deeper in the wilderness, passing through dense palm groves. As they approached, a warrior reported to Keel-san that according to information gathered at the port, a strange disease was circulating in the village ahead, potentially the home of the lay people Tak Enyang might have preyed upon. Trusting Soryang's earlier assessment that the lay people shouldn't be inherently hostile, Keel-san ordered his men to proceed into the village. The village itself felt strangely subdued and quiet. Villagers moved sluggishly, many looking unwell, huddled listlessly or lying down. An elderly woman with tired eyes noticed their approach, asking warily if anyone was there. As the Tang group emerged from the trees, several lay villagers gathered, their expressions guarded as they questioned what Han people were doing there. Their leader, a weary-looking elder adorned with traditional jewelry, stepped forward with a young girl clinging to his side. Keel-san clasped his hands respectfully, introducing himself as the patriarch of the Sichuan Tang clan and explaining their purpose. Soryang glanced around, troubled. The village felt lifeless, and the small girl looked particularly weak. He suddenly realized what was wrong. The vacant stares, the lethargy, the drool visible on one man's chin. It seemed like they had ingested some kind of harmful substance or medicine. The village elder, however, curtly informed them that no one was missing and nothing unusual was happening, sharply telling them to go back. He grew agitated as Keel-san noted the discrepancy between the number of houses and the sparse population visible, repeating forcefully that it was nothing Han people should concern themselves with and ordering them to leave. Keel-san looked sideways at Soryang with a raised eyebrow, silently questioning the boy's earlier assertion about lay friendliness. Soryang flushed slightly, looking flustered. Just as the tension mounted, the little girl suddenly cried out and collapsed. The elder rushed to her side in panic, cradling her limp form and crying out that she was his only remaining relative and couldn't fall sick too. Seeing the girl's condition, Keel-san stepped forward, offering assistance, stating he had learned some medical arts. Though surprised, the desperate elder immediately urged him to examine her. He explained haltingly that a plague had been spreading through the village for some time, killing children and sickening healthy adults. Understanding the elder's previous hostility, Keel-san agreed to try his best. The elder, overwhelmed with gratitude, thanked him profusely and quickly ordered the villagers to guide the party inside. As they were led into a nearby dwelling, one of the Tang warriors quietly asked Soryang if the patriarch also knew medical arts. Soryang confirmed, and the warrior elaborated that proficiency in medicine was common in the Tang clan, as their martial arts revolve around poisons and require deep understanding of the body. Soryang pondered this. Perhaps joining the Tang clan meant learning healing arts, not just scary poison techniques. His hopeful thought was immediately shattered when the same warrior added with a sinister chuckle that, of course, they also occasionally captured wicked individuals and injected them with poisons just to observe the reactions. Human experimentation? Soryang recoiled internally. Okay, maybe HR complaints really weren't a thing here. As expected, these people were terrifying. Inside the simple house, the sick girl, Mi-jin, lay on a mat, breathing shallowly. Keel-san knelt beside her and gently transferred some of his inner chi, stabilizing her breathing. The village elder thanked him tearfully, pleading with him to save his only granddaughter. Keel-san examined the girl further, noting something odd about her pulse and asking if she suffered from a congenital heart weakness. The elder explained she had only fallen ill about half a year ago, around the same time the mysterious disease began afflicting others. That explained his earlier defensiveness at the village entrance. Keel-san offered to provide some potent heart medicine from his supplies, asking the elder to gather the villagers so they could all try it. The elder wept with gratitude, thanking him again and again. Keel-san simply nodded kindly. Soryong watched the exchange silently. Later that night, under a full moon, Keel-san walked through the quiet village with his subordinate, Gu Pei, who had been tending to the patients. Keel-san asked about the symptoms Gu Pei had observed. Gu Pei confirmed they were quite unusual. Lethargy, swelling around the eyes, light fever, and irregular pulses were common, but the symptoms varied greatly between individuals. However, all severe cases presented with significant heart problems. Keel-san inquired about the young warrior. Gu Pei mentioned Soryong had been exhausted from helping out without any martial arts training to sustain him, so he had fallen asleep in his room. Keel-san acknowledged Soryong had worked hard and decided to check on him, with Gu Pei offering to lead the way. Water droplets marked the floor near the entrance to Soryong's room. Inside, the boy was sound asleep, the baby centipedes nestled quietly in a basket nearby. Keel-san peered through the doorway, then quietly slipped inside, approaching the sleeping figure. He raised his hand, palm open and glowing faintly, moving it slowly towards Soryong's face. As he smacked his cheek, sitting bolt upright. "The elder," he stammered, bewildered by the sudden, strange action. Soryong jolted awake, his cheek stinging. He stared up at Keel-san, bewildered and holding his face, demanding indignantly what that was for. Keel-san quickly apologized, fabricating an excuse about spotting a bug on Soryong's face and merely trying to catch it. He pleaded for a chance to explain himself, looking slightly panicked. The patriarch elaborated that he had come to check on the boy before retiring when he noticed an insect land near Soryong's mouth. Given the prevalence of venomous insects in the region, he claimed his hand moved automatically out of concern. To prove his point, Keel-san opened his palm, revealing the crushed remains of the bug. Soryong stared, recognition dawning. His eyes widened in sudden understanding. He quickly connected the dots, asking Keel-san if it was true that all the afflicted villagers suffered from heart arrhythmia. Keel-san confirmed. Soryong pointed dramatically at the insect remains, declaring that was the cause of the mysterious illness. He identified it as a kissing bug, a bloodsucker from the Reduviidae family, known for biting near the eyes or lips. They were sneaky, Soryong explained, sometimes called vampire or assassin bugs. While not venomous themselves, their stomachs teemed with harmful parasites transmitted through their excrement after feeding, causing trypanosomiasis, or Chagas disease, a major killer ranked 7th among deadly animals. Soryong then asked the nearby village elder if the local dog showed similar lethargy, which the elder confirmed with startled realization. Soryong affirmed the bug was the culprit. Hope flared in the elder's eyes as he asked if Soryong could save his granddaughter. Soryong admitted it was possible, provided they had the right medicine. Keel-san and his subordinate exchanged a knowing, amused look. Keel-san saw the young warrior's undeniable value now. He reminded Soryong with a confident smile that they were the Sichuan Tang family. Soryong looked blankly, wondering what that had to do with anything. Keel-san then explained the dark art of gu, parasitic bugs cultivated through witchcraft to inflict pain or control victims. Soryong was momentarily fascinated by the idea of control, but Keel-san soberly recounted the horrific reality. Gu had killed countless martial artists and driven others to unspeakable acts against their own families, causing the listening elder to cry out in remembered or imagined grief. Because of this terror, Keel-san continued, immense effort had gone into finding antidotes, cures that could expel or destroy the gu within the body. He posed a question: who could possibly succeed in such a feat? With immense pride, Keel-san declared it was, of course, the great Sichuan Tang family. If they could handle fist-sized roundworms, this tiny bug was hardly a challenge. He produced a crimson pill, the curse melting orb. Soryong mentally translated, fancy name for dewormer. Keel-san reassured the anxious elder they could save his granddaughter, And indeed, they could. Soon, thanks to the Tang medicine, the villagers began to recover, starting with Mi Jean, who was tearfully embraced by her relieved grandfather. The lay people, true to their rumored optimistic nature, showed immense gratitude, hosting a lavish feast for their saviors. During the meal, Keel-san humbly deflected praise, insisting it was Soryong who deserved their thanks for identifying the disease's source. The villagers enthusiastically agreed, hailing Soryong as their hero. Although the Tang medicine affected the cure, Keel-san ensured Soryong received all the credit, looking quite pleased himself as he watched the boy being celebrated. Soryong found himself genuinely touched by the patriarch's gesture. The Tang warriors, caught up in the festive mood, even playfully tossed Soryong into the air like he'd just won the Super Bowl. Later, amidst the ongoing feast, Keel-san revisited his earlier question with the village elder, inquiring about villages where people had gone missing. The elder confirmed he remembered the request and, wishing to repay their kindness, shared a story he'd heard. One woman in their village, originally from elsewhere, had spoken of a tragedy years ago where several people vanished from her hometown. Keel-san's eyes lit up. This was the lead they needed. He eagerly asked for the village's location. The elder described it as a small settlement to the west. Following the elder's directions, the Tang group ventured towards the specified location. As they drew near, the cloying stench of death filled the air. Keel-san recoiled. The scene before them was a horrifying valley littered with countless skeletons and bones, shrouded in a poisonous haze. A Tang warrior tried to shield Soryong's eyes, but it was too late. The gruesome sight was already seared into his memory. Soryong noticed something moving amidst the carnage. A strange, skeletal bird-like creature with sharp talons pecking at the remains. Was that a bird? One of the warriors, disgusted by the scavenger desecrating the dead, picked up a rock and hurled it, yelling for the creature to get away. The rock struck the bird with a thud. The creature landed amidst the bones, seemingly unfazed, and turned its head, fixing them with an unnerving gaze. A warrior felt a sudden chill, sensing something deeply wrong. The bird's form began to shimmer as an oppressive, dark energy erupted from it. Its feathers transformed into vibrant, iridescent purple hues as it spread its wings and rose into the air, surrounded by swirling shadows. Soryong stared, aghast, as the very skeletons scattered across the valley floor began to bubble and meld away under the bird's baleful influence. He clamped a hand over his mouth, stifling a gasp. Keel-san grabbed him, yelling for everyone to retreat immediately. That creature, he shouted in alarm, was a zhenyao, a legendary bird whose very presence was a deadly poison. Returning to the relative safety of the lay village, Keel-san sat with Soryong and the others, explaining the terrifying nature of the zhenyao they had just encountered. He described its impressive 5-foot wingspan, sharp bronze beak, and distinctive purple feathers. When enraged, its presence alone corrupted the surroundings, turning everything black and poisonous. Topped with a golden crown, its regal appearance solidified its identity as the legendary Zhen. Soryong stammered, realizing the implication. Had they truly witnessed one of the fabled 10 great venomous creatures? Keel-san confirmed, adding that the zhenyao sat at the pinnacle, revered as the king of all venom. Soryong's mind reeled. The venomous creatures of his old world seemed like harmless house pets compared to this flying biochemical weapon. Keel-san further elaborated that the bird was likely drawn to the valley by the abundance of venomous snakes, whose heads were its sole diet. He stressed the extreme rarity of such a sighting, potentially a once-in-100-years event. Soryong, wide-eyed, absorbed this information, then hesitantly asked if capturing such a creature was even possible. Keel-san chuckled, noting the boy's keen interest in the 10 great venomous creatures. He acknowledged the venom's deadliness but revealed there was a way. By mastering the Tang clan's unique poison techniques, one could achieve immunity to all poisons, even the zhenyaos. However, he added with feigned regret, these techniques were exclusive clan secrets, forbidden to outsiders, leaving his hands tied as patriarch. Soryong, practically vibrating with excitement, immediately asked if becoming a family member would grant him access to this knowledge, immunity, and the ability to withstand the Jinyao's power. Keel-san affirmed, promising to teach Soryong everything without reservation if he decided now, adding a reminder to take care of his gift, presumably his daughter. He then applied a little pressure, suggesting that if Soryong hesitated too long, the offer might need reconsideration. Panicked, Soryong didn't hesitate further, declaring his commitment to join the clan and looking forward to the patriarch's guidance. Keel-san laughed, delighted, formally welcoming Soryong into the Tang family fold. Their investigation then led them to the cave Tak Onyang had used, finding footprints and residue. Gu-pei reported to the patriarch, presenting a book found within. Keel-san examined it, recognizing the blood hand poison claw techniques inscribed horrifyingly in blood. With a blue-spotted centipede core secured and Tak Onyang's manual obtained, Keel-san decided it was time to return to Sichuan. Soryong requested a brief stop at the abandoned Taoist temple to release his collected creatures, which Keel-san readily agreed to, acknowledging Soryong also needed his belongings. With plans set, they prepared to depart. As they left the Valley of Death, Soryong noticed something glinting on the ground and pointed out. It was a vibrant, iridescent feather shed by the Jinyao. The Tang warriors gathered around it cautiously. Keel-san picked it up carefully, presenting it to Soryong as a commemorative gift for joining the family, given his evident fascination. Keel-san then smirked, commenting that while the gift was fine, Soryong's form of address needed work, suggesting a change after the ceremony. An initiation, Soryong realized. Meanwhile, far away at the Tang clan estate, the Grand Patriarch, Tang Muzong, finally arrived, having traveled ahead. He rushed forward anxiously, demanding to know Wien's condition. Assured she was still holding on, he urged haste, bursting through her chamber doors. "Won!" he cried, met by relieved clan members surrounding the fading girl. He addressed Keel-san's wife, his daughter-in-law, presenting the precious blue-spotted centipede core. She gasped, realizing they had succeeded. Wasting no time, the Grand Patriarch focused on his granddaughter, relieved he'd made it back just in time. He quickly administered the glowing core. Its potent energy flowed into Won, stabilizing her condition as her grandfather anxiously checked her pulse, urging her to wake. Her eyes remained closed, but life had returned from the brink. The journey from Hainan was long. Soryong marveled at the vastness of the Central Plains, traveling by boat to Hangzhou, then overland through Nanjing, a trip lasting over a month and a half. Finally, they arrive at the imposing gates marking the entrance to Sichuan and the Tang clan's territory. One of the warriors proudly introduced it as the home of the Sichuan Tang clan. They walked towards the main gate, the warrior explaining that the entire mountain belonged to them, hence its name, Tang Clan Mountain. Soryong looked around, awestruck. Suddenly, a large crowd of Tang clan members surged forward, shouting welcomes to the returning patriarch. Soryong was startled by the sheer number of people. Were all these formidable individuals part of the clan? A figure in red gracefully descended from a rooftop. Keel-san looked up, surprised, calling out, "Father!" A young woman, vibrant and full of life, rushed towards them, crying out apologies to her father. Soryong stared, slightly dumbfounded. Keel-san, overjoyed, exclaimed that Won was alive and well, catching her in a tight embrace as she apologized for worrying him. Soryong observed the reunion, struck by Wien's radiant appearance. Even celebrities from his past life couldn't compare to her aura. She seemed to glow. Keel-san turned, gesturing to Soryong, introducing him as Soryong before introducing Won, asking Soryong if he remembered what he called her. A weed? Won looked confused. That's right, flower," Keel-san exclaimed, patting his daughter's head affectionately. He proudly presented Won as the very flower Soryong had brushed off earlier. Won and Soryong stared at each other, equally bewildered. Soryong recalled Keel-san boasting about his daughter being one of the 3 flowers of the Central Plains and could only manage a flustered ah. This is Tang Huayin, the poisonous flower, only daughter of the Sichuan Tang clan. From a young age, she bore a hidden emotional weight. Whispers followed her. Elders acknowledged her outstanding beauty, enough to be named one of the Murim's 3 flowers. Yet they doubted her talent and gossiped about needing a suitable son-in-law, even suggesting her father take a second wife, a notion he resisted. Burning with indignation, Huayin resolved to prove her parents and herself were not wrong. She dedicated herself to the family's martial arts, driven to show the clan elders her worth, determined to contribute greatly even as a woman. But impatience became her undoing. The adage, haste makes waste, proved true. Her eagerness birthed a heart demon, leading to a catastrophic chi deviation that nearly claimed her life. Awakening weak and disoriented in her chambers, surrounded by family, her mother offered gentle reassurances. Tears streamed down Huayin's face as despair washed over her. She sobbed apologies to her mother, believing her dreams shattered, lamenting the loss of all her inner chi. Her grandfather, Tang Muzong, held her hand, chiding her gently like a beloved brat. He asked if her sorrow stemmed from the trouble she caused, then reminded her she had, in fact, achieved the level of 100 poisons she desperately sought. Huayin stared, incredulous. As if responding to the thought, she felt a surge of unfamiliar power within her hand, a vibrant chi flowing through her body. She looked at her grandfather, questioning this new energy. Muzong then recounted the tale of a mysterious young warrior who not only saved her life, but gifted her the inner chi of 1,000 poisons, vastly exceeding her original goal. The scene shifted back to the present gathering. Huayin heard Keel-san mention weed, the awkward silence hanging heavy after the introductions. Soryong inwardly cursed his past self for the careless weed comment made when absorbed in the story of venomous creatures. He quickly composed himself, clasping his hands politely and introducing himself as Wei Soryong. Huayin acknowledged him. With a warm smile, she formally greeted him. She introduced herself as Tang Huayin, the poisonous flower, thanking him profoundly for saving her life and vowing to never forget the debt. Soryong was completely mesmerized by her beauty. Suddenly, Keel-san's voice echoed only in Soryong's mind, startling him. The patriarch teasingly asked Soryong's opinion, noting Huayin's beauty despite her recent thinness, and mischievously suggesting Soryong get to know her better. Later, Soryong soaked in a large, steaming bath, his tiny centipede companions resting in a nearby bucket. He sighed dramatically, feeling utterly overwhelmed by the day's events. His attention drifted to the centipedes. They normally clung to him. Yet, when he'd warned them about the hot water and suggested the bucket, they'd complied, as if understanding perfectly. He recalled Keel-san mentioning their ability to react to killing intent. Perhaps they truly could understand him. It's embarrassing if you keep staring, he joked, splashing water gently towards the bucket. The centipedes chirped in response. He chuckled, remembering Gu Pei calling them spiritual creatures. He'd have to ask about that later. His thoughts drifted, but Keel-san's suggestive words about Huayin kept circling, making him antsy. Within the Tang residence, Keel-san sat with his father and wife, explaining his decision to give Soryong the East Wing room, typically reserved for couples. Muzong questioned if the boy was truly so talented. Keel-san affirmed, calling Soryong himself the lucky encounter, detailing his extraordinary knowledge, his feat of killing Tak Unyang, encountering the Jinyao, and even successfully hatching the blue-spotted centipede eggs. Muzong laughed, impressed that Keel-san had found such a treasure. Keel-san then turned to Huayin, bluntly asking her thoughts on taking the young warrior as his son-in-law. Huayin was visibly stunned, along with her mother. After a moment of silence, Huayin, remembering her ambition and newfound power, acknowledged her father's meaning. But then, slamming her hand down, she declared she would personally verify if Soryong was worthy before storming out, leaving the elders slightly exasperated. Keel-san sighed, mentally warning Soryong. His rose certainly possessed sharp thorns. Hwain ran swiftly, fueled by determination. Having acquired the 1,000 Poisons constitution, she refused to be sidelined. She would assess this potential suitor thoroughly, from qualifications to personality. Meanwhile, Soryong sat outside, blissfully unaware, fretting to his centipedes, worried Hwain might resent him. He asked the chirping creatures for advice. Suddenly, Hwain appeared before him, making him jump. "Why, young Miss Hwain?" he stammered. She asked him to excuse her haste and requested his hand. Confused but obliging, Soryong extended his own, then blurted out that maybe they should get closer before doing this, insisting on proper order. Hwain stared, perplexed, then comprehension dawned. Flushing bright red, she vehemently denied that kind of intention. Soryong relaxed, relieved. "So it's not, huh?" "Thank goodness." An awkward silence settled between Soryong and Hwain amidst the scenic Tang clan grounds. Hwain let out a breath, breaking the tension. She quickly clarified her earlier request for his hand wasn't what he thought. She merely intended to check his pulse, admitting her abruptness likely caused the misunderstanding. Soryong laughed nervously, conceding he hadn't realized. Hwain then formally apologized for appearing suddenly and acting rudely. Noting his youth yet seemingly thoughtful nature, she offered to explain the complex situation surrounding her and the clan's expectations, which Soryong readily agreed to hear. They sat together, and Soryong listened as Hwain recounted a tale sounding like something straight out of a historical drama. As the sole direct descendant, she faced constant political maneuvering from ambitious branch families. To secure the main family line, the elders were pushing for her to marry a highly capable son-in-law. They had even discussed how Soryong's potential integration into the family might affect her standing. With that context laid out, she apologized again, but stated there was something she needed to confirm with him directly. She hastily assured him that regardless of the outcome, she intended no ill will. He was her benefactor and would be treated as a guest, perhaps even like sworn siblings if things didn't proceed as her father hoped, though the suggestion seemed to surprise even herself. Soryong calmly accepted, telling her to feel free to confirm whatever she needed. Hwain collected herself and gently took his wrist, preparing to assess his aptitude. A subtle energy flowed between them as she began. She explained that mastering the Tang clan's poison arts required a specific constitution. Not everyone could accept toxins into their body. Their techniques demanded gradual adaptation, moving through progressive levels. 5 poisons, 10, 100,000, culminating in 10,000 poisons to achieve true mastery. Holding his wrist, she confirmed that, fortunately, his body was capable of learning their poison techniques. However, her assessment revealed he possessed only a 10 poisons body, meaning his capacity was limited to handling just 10 types of toxins. Soryong looked taken aback. Hwain elaborated that while this was impressive for an outsider, it placed his potential martial skill ceiling at the level of a first-rate martial artist, the peak for someone without innate, specialized talent. Offering her apologies, she concluded her assessment and stood to leave. Soryong mumbled a farewell, watching her depart. Hwain walked away, leaving him to process the news. A 10-poisoned body? The realization struck him hard. This limitation could derail his ambition to capture the mighty Jinyao. Later, Hwain stepped out of her bath, sighing in the steamy air. She couldn't shake the feeling, or the faint, persistent scent, that had clung to her since absorbing the blue-spotted centipede's inner core, no matter how many times she bathed. After dressing, she retired for the night. Soryong, meanwhile, fell into a deep sleep, drool escaping the corner of his mouth. He found himself in a dreamscape, roused by sounds of tearful gratitude. Before him knelt a figure appearing as Hwain, thanking her benefactor profusely. Was this a dream? Soryong wondered. The figure, or rather a chibi version of it, confirmed it felt like one, but wasn't. She explained she had merely borrowed the appearance of the girl who consumed her inner core, introducing herself as the mother of the blue-spotted centipedes. Soryong was stunned, then startled again as 3 small children appeared beside her. He observed them, realizing they were manifestations of the baby centipedes he carried, cute little girls. He asked how she could be in his dream. The centipede mother recounted her demise, killed mercilessly, her spirit clinging to the inner core, fueled by a powerful grudge for leaving her children behind. She had been cursing Huayin from within, but Soryong's presence, carrying her children, provided a chance to resolve her lingering resentment by appearing to him. It was because he had brought her children, her benefactor, she clarified. Soryong felt a pang of guilt, knowing he was the one who inadvertently led the Tang clan to her location, becoming involved in her death, however unintentionally. The centipede mother offered a gentle smile and made a request. Would he care for her children until they were fully grown? Soryong immediately agreed, promising to fulfill her wish. She caressed one of the children's heads as she formally asked him to raise them. Soryong questioned this, recalling centipedes usually become independent after 2 molts. The spirit explained her species was different. They relied on the chi from her inner core until shedding twice, after which they needed to feed on the true chi of other beings. Soryong put it together. Since Huayin consumed the core, the children needed her chi. The mother urged him to understand. She reminded him of the curse she placed on Huayin, the foul odor. It was meant to repel men, ensuring Huayin could never bear children, a truly vicious curse. The mother then proposed a deal. She would lift the curse if Soryong allowed her children to absorb the core's chi via Huayin, slyly adding it might help him win the girl's heart. Soryong considered it briefly, then firmly refused to take advantage of Huayin's situation. The centipede mother commended his nobility, but questioned how he planned to overcome the challenge of winning Huayin, who sought strength. She couldn't provide another core, hers already being absorbed, reminding him of the power needed, like that of the 10 great venomous creatures. Soryong's eyes lit up. He had an idea and asked for the spirit's trust, assuring her it would work. The next day, Soryong sat with Huayin again, having explained the centipede mother's curse and the nature of the strange scent emanating from her. He outlined the solution. By letting the baby centipedes attach to her body every few days to absorb the core's lingering chi, the odor would naturally fade. Huayin seemed thoughtful, albeit a bit awkward. She questioned if it was truly acceptable for him to offer this solution freely, without demanding compensation he was rightfully owed. Soryong simply smiled, reiterating he couldn't shamelessly exploit her difficult circumstances. Huayin fell silent for a moment, processing his principled stance. She then declared she wouldn't simply accept his kindness without return. Addressing him as Brother Soryong, she stated she would now seriously consider her father's proposal, realizing Soryong possessed qualities, like integrity, far more valuable than mere talent or martial prowess. Soryong, slightly flustered, admitted he'd been thinking too. He recalled her assessment of his 10 poisons body. An idea struck him then. He explained, gesturing to his tiny companions. If he could only handle 10 toxins, why not make them count? He would fill those 10 slots with the poisons of the legendary 10 most venomous creatures of the Central Plains. Huayin stared, absolutely astonished. He wanted to become the strongest under the heavens for her sake. She thought, completely misunderstanding his Pokemon-like ambition to catch them all. For Tang Huayin, one of the famed 3 flowers, this was the first time any man had ever made such a bold, passionate declaration. Huayin's heart pounded in the aftermath of Soryong's declaration. Flustered, she asked if he truly comprehended the weight of his words. Soryong, with a confident grin that didn't quite reach his eyes, cheerfully admitted he didn't, leaving Huayin momentarily speechless. Regaining her composure, she warned him that the path he proposed, seeking out the 10 great venomous creatures, was fraught with peril, potentially requiring decades, even a lifetime of effort. Soryong's bravado faltered slightly at the daunting time frame. Huayin covered her intensely blushing face for a moment, then looked at him seriously. She mentioned his age, 15, and proposed a condition. In 3 years, when he came of age and was ready for marriage, if he managed to successfully deal with even one of those legendary creatures, she would be convinced. She stammered slightly, hinting that his success would clear the path for, well, for them. Abruptly, she declared she would be rooting for him and turned to make a hasty retreat, clearly overwhelmed. Soryong, startled by her sudden departure, called after her. She paused, turning back with a deep blush, asking if he had something more to say. Soryong brightly reminded her about the treatment for the lingering scent, suggesting she stay for a bit so the centipedes could begin absorbing the chi. Hwang returned stiffly. He reassured her the small creatures wouldn't bite, gently coaxing them from his hand towards her. Then, with oblivious cheerfulness, he told the centipede to go to their mom instead of their dad, causing Hwang's face to flame red. He quickly tried to clarify, explaining it was just because they were like children, but the damage was done. Meanwhile, Keel-san, Mu-zong, and Keel-san's wife discussed the budding situation. Keel-san noted that Soryong's talent alone didn't seem sufficient to capture Hwang's interest, guessing she had turned the boy down earlier. Mu-zong thoughtfully stroked his beard, agreeing that forcing a marriage was unwise and that allowing feelings to develop naturally was preferable. Keel-san's wife then suggested Hwang oversee Soryong's martial arts training, figuring the proximity might encourage closeness, an idea Keel-san found agreeable. Mu-zong proposed seeking a rare elixir from the elder healer sage to enhance Soryong's aptitude, but Keel-san remained skeptical, recalling that such measures hadn't even been feasible for Hwang. Mu-zong conceded the difficulty. Just then, Hwang appeared at the door, announcing herself. Keel-san, surprised by her late visit, invited her in. She entered, looking startled and blushing upon seeing all three elders present. She stammered that she had something she needed to say. Taking a deep breath, looking incredibly flustered, she declared she would abide by her father's wishes regarding the marriage. Keel-san looked utterly bewildered, asking what she meant and if Soryong had perhaps captured her interest after all. Hwang nodded shyly. Her mother expressed delighted surprise at this sudden turnaround. Hwang began to explain, recounting how Soryong had promised to become the greatest in the world, specifically for her. Intrigued, Keel-san urged her to elaborate. Hwang explained Soryong's 10 poisons body limitation and his grand vow to overcome it by defeating the 10 great venomous creatures, all for her sake. The elders were thoroughly amused and impressed. Mu-zong praised the boy's audacity, while her mother remarked on the rarity of such a passionate suitor. Hwang clarified that she had told Soryong she would only agree to the marriage if he succeeded in capturing one creature before his coming of age, wondering privately if he truly understood her implied acceptance. Her mother chuckled, teasing that she should have asked for 3 captures and noting men's denseness in matters of the heart. When Hwang asked if she should clarify her intentions, her mother advised against it, suggesting the ambiguity would motivate him more fiercely. Mu-zong concluded they should treat Soryong as a prospective son-in-law, but maintain an air of uncertainty publicly, allowing his efforts to naturally integrate him into the family. Back in the dreamscape, the centipede mother clasped Soryong's hands, impressed. She cheekily asked if he'd completely won the lady's heart already. Soryong laughed awkwardly, attributing it more to guts and maybe a bit of fake-it-till-you-make-it perseverance. The spirit smiled warmly. She informed him this would likely be her last visit. Her resentment was resolved, her energy nearly spent, and her soul ready to ascend. Soryong offered to do anything she might ask as a final request. He thought for a moment, then hesitantly asked if he could perhaps examine her body. The centipede mother blushed, acknowledging his masculine curiosity with understanding, though internally suspecting a weakness for lust. Soryong quickly backpedaled, clarifying, did she really have to take it off? The spirit children covered their eyes as she coyly asked if she should, if he preferred. No, Soryong insisted, that wasn't what he meant. He simply wanted to see the true form of a blue-spotted centipede for scientific interest. Ah, the spirit replied, a predatory glint in her eye. If that's the case. A massive wave of energy pulsed outwards. The terrifying, armored head of the giant centipede loomed. Its colossal, segmented body materialized in the dreamscape, asking if this form would suffice. Soryeon gasped, biologist mode fully engaged, his eyes sparkling. Wow, you're real. And huge. Without hesitation, he began examining her, touching her carapace, questioning its durability and joint mechanics, then moving to her legs, asking about her gait, peppering her with questions about venom potency and sensory organs, much to the dismay of the spirit children. He demanded to touch her fangs, reminding her of her promise. The centipede mother, utterly flabbergasted by this bizarre interrogation, could only wonder what she'd gotten her children into. Because Soryeong's touch wasn't lewd, it was the unervingly intense prodding of a scientist who just found the ultimate specimen. Chapter 11. Introductions and Invitations. Transition from Chapter 10. Having scientifically interrogated the centipede mother's spirit in his dream and struck a deal, Soryeong awakens to face the complex realities of the Tang clan. Keel-san sat across from Soryeong, adopting a formal tone. He addressed the boy, correcting himself mid-sentence from young warrior to young master Soryeong. He stated he had already heard everything from Hwain, and henceforth Soryeong would be officially treated as their prospective son-in-law. Soryeong sputtered, confused about the 3-year condition Hwain had mentioned, but Keel-san waved it off, assuring him the wedding itself would naturally wait until Soryeong came of age. Before Soryeong could process further, Keel-san's wife beamed, welcoming her son-in-law, while the Grand Patriarch laughed heartily, proclaiming that with Hwain's match decided, prosperity awaited the clan. Soryeong glanced uncertainly at Hwain, who avoided his gaze. This acceptance felt abrupt. Weren't there supposed to be conditions? Deciding it was best to just roll with it for now, Soryeong offered a slightly flustered bow, expressing he looked forward to everyone's guidance. Excellent, Keel-san declared, ready to proceed immediately. He explained that before Soryeong could begin learning the Tang clan's poison arts, there was something crucial he needed to witness. Keel-san and Mu-zong exchanged a significant look. The patriarch revealed their destination, the Hall of 10,000 Poisons, guaranteeing Soryeong would find it captivating. The family group set off across the Tang compound. Mu-zong explained that visiting the hall was a cherished tradition for new family members, a first step into their world. Soryeong eagerly agreed, addressing Mu-zong respectfully as grandfather. Internally, Soryeong buzzed with excitement. A hall containing 10,000 kinds of poisons? It sounded like Disneyland for biologists. He stole a glance at Hwain walking beside him. Caught by the sunlight filtering through the leaves, she looked ethereal. Soryeong found himself momentarily stunned, thinking she looked like a living work of art, a photoshoot model sprung to life. His brief reverie was broken by the amused chuckles of Keel-san and his wife. Keel-san teased Soryeong about staring so intently at his own betrothed, while his wife commented on how completely smitten their new son-in-law appeared. Hwain nudged Soryeong, reminding him gently to watch where he was going. A short while later, they arrived before imposing, heavily fortified gates set into the mountainside, guarded by intimidatingly muscular men. A senior guard greeted the Grand Patriarch with deference. Mu-zong instructed the gates be open to allow his grandson-in-law a brief tour of the hall. Soryeong noted the surprisingly tight security for what seemed like a storage facility. The senior guard bellowed the order, and the brawny guard strained, pushing open the massive doors. The head guard offered a slightly unsettling grin, remarking they were opening quicker today, leaving Soryeong perplexed. He gestured them forward politely. Soryeong followed Keel-san, feeling a thrill of anticipation. Keel-san explained the immense honor associated even with opening these gates, forged from rare Kunyu steel. Finally, they stepped inside. Keel-san announced their arrival at the treasure trove where the Tang clan stored all its poisons. Mu-zong elaborated, identifying it as the chamber of 10,000 poisons within the hall, sternly warning Soryong not to touch anything recklessly. Soryong gazed around the vast cavern, filled with countless jars and boxes, learning the poisons were meticulously categorized by type: paralysis, sleep agents, and countless others. Keel-san then slyly suggested Hwain take over the explanation, wagering Soryong would enjoy it more coming from her. Hwain flushed slightly but agreed, clearing her throat and leading Soryong deeper, offering to show him the clan's strongest poisons first. As they walked, she pointed out various infamous concoctions like chi-dissipating poison, spirit-destroying poison, and the seven-step soul-snatching poison, while the elders watched with fond smiles. She paused before a set of drawers, explaining that while those were potent, the clan's true, strongest poison was different. She carefully took out a small object and placed it in Soryong's hand. He examined it curiously. A bean? A seed? It looked like a tiger bean. Hwain declared that, setting aside the legendary creatures, this was the most powerful poison in existence. It was the seed of the castor plant, she revealed, a plant symbolizing the Tang clan itself. Soryong's blood ran cold. Castor seed? Ricin. He knew it from his past life. A horrifyingly lethal toxalbumin, famously used in assassinations, hundreds of thousands of times stronger than cyanide. Hwain confirmed its nature, noting it perfectly embodied the Tang clan's ideal. Colorless, odorless, tasteless, formless. They called it golden poison, the rarest and most precious. Death delivered by it was known as a golden death. She leaned closer, her voice low, explaining that the strongest poison wasn't about agony or gruesomeness. It was about killing silently, swiftly, and without a trace. Soryong stared, the implications sinking in. The Sichuan Tang clan wasn't just about poisons. They were a clan of assassins. Ho-ho, that's enough for now. Muzong interrupted cheerfully. He suggested they proceed to the venomous beast Soryong was so eager to see, even offering him the chance to oversee their care, if interested. Soryong's eyes widened in disbelief. They'd support his hobby? Provide resources? Just as he was about to enthusiastically agree, Gu Pei burst in looking panicked. Patriarch, you need to come out immediately. He urged them to head straight to the Black Tortoise Pavilion, explaining the clan elders were involved. Muzong bristled, demanding to know what those bastards were up to now. Soryong instantly recalled Hwain's mention of the troublesome branch families. Gu Pei held up two fingers nervously. First, the medicine sent to the Sichuan city lord had failed, and the lord had sent back a scathing letter full of complaints. As he hesitated before mentioning the second issue, Soryong couldn't stifle a small yawn. The second problem, Gu Pei continued, concerned the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. Rumors about Soryong's access were already circulating. Muzong sighed, deciding they had to deal with this now, and instructed Soryong to accompany them. They quickly arrived at the Black Tortoise Pavilion, where a group of stern-faced elders immediately confronted them. One demanded how Keel-san could make such a critical decision, betrothing Hwain to an orphan of unknown origins, on his own. Keel-san's face hardened. He repeated the elder's words slowly. An orphan? With unknown origins? His voice dripped with ice as he asked if they were insulting his son-in-law, coolly stating it was merely fact. Before the elder could retort, Muzong stepped forward, his voice booming, declaring that he was the one who made the decision and challenging anyone present to voice their objections. Another elder implored Muzong to reconsider, calling it absurd to entrust the hall to an outsider with unproven abilities. Soryong raised an eyebrow, thinking, didn't the Grand Patriarch just say he approved it himself? Hwain moved closer to Soryong, apologizing softly, her face etched with worry. Soryong felt a pang of guilt for causing her distress, though he knew she wasn't the one who needed to apologize. He stepped forward, interrupting the tense standoff. Since the core of their complaint seemed to be his own perceived lack of ability, he addressed the elders directly. Would they be satisfied, he asked, if he demonstrated his skills and proved himself? For instance, he suggested with a sly grin, perhaps by solving that troublesome issue with the Sichuan city lord? Huayin and her mother gasped softly. Soryang wasn't one to seek conflict, but if these elders were going to disrupt his new, surprisingly domestic pet owner life, well, he wouldn't just let it slide. Soryang faced the irate council. One elder, trembling with indignation, sputtered about how dare he interrupt. The elder demanded to know how a young upstart could barge in while elders were speaking, questioning if Soryang even understood the gravity of the city lord's complaint. He appealed to Keel-san, calling Soryang an insolent nobody daring to meddle, reinforcing their suggestion that a son-in-law from an established clan would have been preferable. Huayin and her mother watched, concerned for Soryang. Soryang, however, remained unimpressed, finding their arguments increasingly absurd. He recalled his past life as Spicy Fabre, a popular streamer with over 1 million subscribers. These old men were like confused boomers compared to the trolls he used to handle. Addressing the elders calmly, he pointed out their refusal to acknowledge him as the son-in-law meant he was still technically a guest. He then reminded them he hadn't merely saved Lady Huayin, but had also defeated the infamous blood hand Rakshasa, Tak Anyang, saving the patriarch's life in the process. With a pointed look, he questioned if insulting a guest and benefactor was standard Tang clan etiquette, finding their malice almost quaint compared to online trolls. The elders flinched, clearing their throats and backtracking, claiming they spoke hastily out of desperation. Soryang mentally scoffed at their pathetic display. Still, one elder expressed disbelief, finding the claim of defeating Tak Anyang too far-fetched. Keel-san stepped forward, affirming Soryang's words and presenting Tak Anyang's secret manual as proof. The elders gasped, recognizing the authentic, blood-written text belonging to the blood sect. At Keel-san's instruction, Soryang prepared to show them the spotted centipedes. He presented the small, yellow creatures crawling on his hands, causing the elders to recoil in surprise. Keel-san explained these were the blue-spotted centipedes' offspring, raised by Soryang, and that these tiny creatures were responsible for killing Tak Anyang. He then mockingly asked if they should still refer to Soryang as young warrior, since they refused him as son-in-law. Soryang playfully warned the centipedes not to bite the elders, lest they end up like Tak Anyang. The elders paled noticeably. Hastily, the lead elder retracted their refusal, claiming it was merely hesitation due to bypass procedures. Muzong sighed, setting aside the son-in-law debate for the moment, but questioned their objection to Soryang entering the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. The elders argued he wasn't fully family yet and too young to be entrusted with such responsibility. Muzong pondered this. The solution, he decided, was simple. Soryang needed to demonstrate his ability. Soryang readily agreed. He declared he would prove his worthiness the Tang clan way, using poison. The elders panicked, thinking he meant to poison the city lord, but Soryang clarified it was about sending medicine, just the Tang clan way. He internally sighed. Nothing was straightforward here, but wasn't the Tang clan supposed to deal in poisons anyway? The next day, Muzong informed Soryang that while the test proceeded, his formal martial arts training would begin with the 5 venoms returning technique. Soryang asked if physical training was involved. Muzong explained the body adapts naturally, and the Tang clan prioritizes practical skills, immediately applicable techniques. He revealed a scroll showcasing an array of concealed weapons: needles, coins, darts, powder, daggers, and throwing knives, the 5 main categories. Muzong quizzed Soryang on the easiest, dagger/throwing knife, and the most difficult. Soryang guessed powder, but Muzong corrected him. It was the needle. Not just due to size, but the critical need to remember the exact position of every thrown needle. Better to demonstrate, he added. Muzong produced a calligraphy brush. Dipping it lightly, he flicked his wrist, sending hundreds of fine bristles scattering like rain, filling the air and covering the training ground. Soryang dodged instinctively as the bristles embedded themselves like tiny needles everywhere. Muzong calmly sat down amidst the needle bristles. He explained this was the sky obscuring flower rain, a secret art where countless needles fall, covering an area. Soryang realized the terrifying implication. Fighting on such turf meant near immobile conditions. Muzong confirmed this, emphasizing why remembering each needle's position was vital, to avoid falling victim to one's own technique. Soryang asked incredulously if that included deflected or misplaced needles. Muzong affirmed it. With a 5-poisoned body, Soryang would need to memorize at least 100 positions just to start. Hwayin, with her 10-poisoned body, could manage 1,000. The sheer mental load was staggering. Soryang promptly collapsed, overwhelmed. Later, while Soryang was preparing, Lady Hwayin arrived. She was clad head to toe in thick, white protective gear, complete with a veiled hat and nets, asking if she prepared correctly for catching hornets. Soryang assured her it was perfect. Her gear meant they could actively hunt instead of waiting. Hwayin looked puzzled at the idea of waiting for hornets. Soryang confirmed he'd found a suitable nest nearby. As they walked, Hwayin hesitantly brought up the city lord's letter, worried Soryang might not fully grasp its contents due to his age, particularly the part about, well, male issues. Soryang, cutting her off before she got too embarrassed, assured her he understood the importance of Yang Qi and was well aware of the problem. The city lord's great issue, he stated plainly, was erectile dysfunction. Hwayin marveled, slightly suspiciously, at his knowledge for his age. Soryang vaguely attributed it to living alone. Flustered, Hwayin urged him to hurry. They walked through the woods, Soryang occasionally distracted by local fauna, until they reached their destination, a small cave entrance, likely a weak hornet hive. Hwayin asked why finding a bee-lacking hive was the goal. Soryang explained cryptically that while they came looking for hornets, they wouldn't actually be catching them. They approached the entrance. The specific venomous insect they needed, he elaborated, dwelled within smaller, weaker hives like this one, parasitizing them. Peering inside, he confirmed their target was present. With swift precision using chopsticks, he snatched a small, dark insect. He confirmed to the astonished Hwayin that this tiny creature, not a hornet, held the key to solving the city lord's troubles. Hwayin looked curiously at the bug Soryang held with chopsticks. She guessed it might be a ground beetle. Soryang confirmed her guess, noting its local name, internally recognizing it as what his era called a blister beetle, specifically a Malabar species. The small, dark beetle wriggled, secreting an orange liquid. Hwayin found its presence in a hornet nest unusual. Soryang explained its peculiar life cycle. Unlike most insects that guard eggs or find safe spots, the blister beetle lays eggs rather carelessly, almost like it's just dropping a deuce anywhere it pleases. It just leaves them there with the bare minimum effort of keeping them grouped. He continued his impromptu biology lesson. Once the larvae hatch, they instinctively climb upwards. Reaching the highest point, they perform a bizarre feat, clustering together to mimic a flower, complete with weird cheerleading poses. An unsuspecting carpenter bee, or similar species, approaches, fooled by the imitation flower, wondering if it was always there. The moment the bee gets close enough, the larvae swarm it, latching onto its body. It's basically game over for the bee. Its nest becomes the larvae's new home and pantry. Why giant hornet nests were favored wasn't entirely clear, Soryang admitted, but seemed the ideal environment for the larvae's growth. Hwayin remarked on the poor hornet's tragic fate, though Soryang shrugged it off as nature's way. Hwayin then recalled hearing this bug causes skin burns and can be fatal if ingested. Soryang affirmed this. The beetle's orange liquid contained cantharidin, a toxin that causes blisters. Hwayin, blushing slightly, alluded to that other effect. Soryang confirmed, with a knowing grin, that it temporarily but immediately raises a man's spirits. Hwayin, utterly flustered, declared that was enough explanation and urged him back to the hall, practically fleeing while Soryang quickly secured a few more beetles. Back in the Hall of 10,000 Poisons, Soryang instructed the clan warriors on preparing the medicine. First, the beetle needed to be dried and ground into powder. He specified that 1/10 of this powder should be considered the pure toxin. He meticulously explained the dosage. Ingesting 3 ml approximate 11.25 milligrams would be life-threatening, while a dose based on body weight, 0.3 ml per guan, had a 50% fatality rate. Therefore, he instructed them to prepare the medicine using only 1/10 of 1 ml, approximate 0.375 milligrams, roughly 10 drops of liquid for the city lord. The warriors listened intently, their brains feeling ready to explode from the complex calculations. One warrior commented, impressed by Soryong's surprising skill in mathematics. Soryong assured Hwayin he would ensure the plan succeeded, and she expressed her confidence in him. Later that night, Muzong and Hwayin discussed the surprising efficacy of the ground beetle. Muzong mused they might need to reevaluate their own poison arsenal. Hwayin agreed. Muzong then inquired about Soryong's mathematical abilities. Hwayin confirmed his detailed calculation of the concentration and dosage, equating it to 10 drops. Muzong was intrigued. He admitted that while he knew poisons, Soryong's knowledge was on another level entirely, recognizing the boy as a true gem. He playfully asked Hwayin if she liked Soryong more now than when they first met. Hwayin blushed, admitting regret for her initial haste, which Muzong accepted, encouraging her to make up for it. Muzong then asked how Soryong planned to test the medicine's effects before sending it. Hwayin hesitated, covering her face in embarrassment. She revealed Soryong, finding the elders insolent, planned to test it by raising the elders straight up. Muzong burst into laughter, finding the kid amusing. The next day, the elders convened, looking skeptical. Soryong sat before them, and a warrior presented the prepared medicine in a small box. The warrior noted he'd added licorice powder and honey to make it palatable, showcasing Soryong's attention to detail. Soryong confirmed the warrior followed his instructions precisely. The elders scoffed, dismissing the effort, until Keel-san silenced them. Keel-san stated the medicine was ready and asked Soryong how he'd prove its efficacy. The elders immediately demanded confirmation, arguing they couldn't send unverified poison to the city lord, fearing disastrous consequences. Soryong calmly agreed there was no other choice and signaled the warrior. The warrior approached the elders, placing the medicine box before them. The elders were outraged, accusing Soryong of telling them to test it, mocking his supposed corruption from being an outsider. Soryong merely watched. He turned to Muzong, reminding him of his earlier statement that true masters of Tang arts feared no poison. Muzong confirmed he had said that. Soryong pointed out the elders' fearful reaction, implying they weren't true masters. Muzong chuckled, conceding his grandson-in-law had a point. Soryong continued tauntingly, surely great elders wouldn't fear such a trivial poison. Goaded, the lead elder scoffed, crushing the medicine pellet. He declared they wouldn't fear such insignificant poison, accusing Soryong of underestimation. He dramatically ingested the powder, warning Soryong of consequences if it did nothing, vowing to uphold clan principles. He swallowed, and a tense silence followed. A smug grin spread across the elder's face. He pointed triumphantly, declaring nothing was happening. Right before his eyes bulged, and an electrifying energy surged through him, accompanied by the mental image of a certain green snake standing at attention. That day, the clan laws were indeed set straight, magnificently. The medicine, subsequently sent to the city lord, proved highly effective. A short while later, Soryong observed the still-recovering elders shuffling away. Muzong remarked with amusement that provoking their pride with poison worked perfectly, as they had little else left. He advised Soryong not to resent them too much, as their actions stemmed from misguided concern for the clan. Ultimately, they were all family. Soryong reluctantly agreed. Just then, Hwayin rushed in frantically, announcing something terrible had happened. She breathlessly informed Muzong and Soryong that their children were acting strangely. Soryong froze, utterly confused. Muzong, however, grabbed Soryong with a terrifying aura, demanding to know the meaning of this. Why did his grandson-in-law suddenly have kids? Muzong held Soryong firmly, demanding to know how he had children before even having a wedding ceremony. Huayin quickly interjected, clarifying frantically that she meant the spotted centipede Soryong was raising, not actual human children. Soryong stared, momentarily bewildered by the misunderstanding, before realizing she was talking about his insect companions. He explained that due to his recent intense physical training, he'd asked Huayin to look after the centipedes and had completely forgotten about them in his exhaustion. A wave of panic hit him as he wondered if something had happened to his babies, urging Huayin to show him immediately. Huayin cried out that they weren't where she left them. Even Muzong looked slightly worried now. A moment later, they located the 3 centipedes lying completely still on the floor. Huayin explained they had simply dropped off her body earlier, seeming fine that morning, and wondered if they were sick. Soryong observed their pale color and odd-looking shells. Recognition dawned on him, and he reassured Huayin there was likely no reason to worry. He explained the phenomenon known as shedding. Creatures like centipedes must shed their hard exoskeletons to grow larger, and it seemed the time had come. Huayin watched, fascinated, asking if they were truly shedding. Soryong confirmed it would happen soon. Just then, Huayin pointed excitedly as one of the pale shells began to crack. A larger, vibrant orange-yellow centipede wriggled free from its old skin. Muzong remarked it was quite an amazing sight, while Huayin exclaimed that the other 2 were starting to shed as well. Soon, 2 more centipedes emerged, revitalized. They looked almost double their previous size, leaving Soryong and Huayin amazed. Curiosity sparked. Huayin asked if the little creatures had names. Soryong admitted they didn't. He pondered for a moment, then casually suggested naming them number 1, number 2, and number 3. Huayin immediately rejected the idea. She passionately argued that legend claimed spotted centipedes could become dragons after a millennium and thus required dignified, dragon-worthy names. Soryong scoffed, dismissing it as biologically impossible. Muzong chuckled, playfully asking why. Then, a 1,000-year-old spotted centipede was traditionally called a heavenly dragon, heavily implying he was the source of Huayin's belief. Caught between logic and tradition, Soryong reconsidered. He proposed calling them Nova, Myra, and Grace. Huayin repeated the names, intrigued. Soryong elaborated. Nova symbolized beginning, Myra meant fragrance, and Grace represented elegance or gentleness. Huayin quietly considered the names. Muzong added that naming the children was typically the father's duty anyway, sealing the decision. A day passed, and the newly named, larger centipedes returned to clinging to Soryong's body. He stretched, still feeling a bit awkward but functional enough to move. He remarked aloud that they were significantly heavier now. The centipedes seemed to react to being called heavy, wriggling enthusiastically enough to knock Soryong over as he apologized. Apparently, they now preferred coiling snugly around his arms and waist, perhaps finding his previous embrace too tight. As Soryong relaxed with his newly molted companions, 2 men passed by, loudly discussing their plans to visit a brothel thanks to the extravagant Tang clan's potent medicine, chuckling about how easy the money was. Soryong overheard them, puzzled for a moment before the implication of the beetle medicine's side business hit him. Later, within one of the clan's buildings, Keel-san arrived beaming, announcing great news. He reminded them of the medicine sent to the Sichuan city lord. It had worked exceptionally well, Keel-san reported, adding that the city lord sent his profound gratitude along with a generous reward. Keel-san laughed heartily, pleased to see such benefits from his new son-in-law already, praising Soryong's remarkable achievement. Soryong humbly replied he was just glad it helped. Stroking his mustache thoughtfully, Keel-san offered Soryong one of his elixirs, carefully phrasing it as something other than a reward to preempt Soryong's expected modesty. Soryong was intrigued, recalling his grandfather mentioning elixirs enhanced internal energy. Huayin inquired about the specific type of elixir. Keel-san casually described it as nothing extraordinary, just the honey of the golden-haired king bee. Soryang initially thought it sounded like regular honey, but reasoned that internal energy was crucial for martial arts and decided to accept. As Soryang began to thank his father-in-law, Hwain cut him off, addressing her father sharply. She questioned why he was offering mere honey as a reward for such a significant accomplishment. She argued passionately that even if the golden-haired king bee was a mid-level creature, its honey was the lowest grade of elixir, scolding Keel-san for being stingy with Soryang. She insisted the reward should grant at least a year's worth of internal energy, far more than the 2 months the honey supposedly offered. Keel-san looked flustered, muttering that it was still expensive to obtain. Hwain declared it a pittance compared to what Soryang achieved, leaving Keel-san sighing about the trials of raising a daughter. Soryang, ever curious, interrupted to ask about the golden-haired king bee itself. Keel-san cleared his throat and described it as a mid-tier venomous creature from the jungles, roughly the size of a small dog. Its honey, he explained, granted internal energy equivalent to 2 months of dedicated meditation. Soryang's eyes sparkled with excitement at the potential power boost. Hwain quickly pinched his cheek, telling him to hold on, feeling upset on his behalf about the seemingly meager reward. Keel-san quickly clarified his true intention. He thought Soryang might prefer to see the golden-haired king bee in person. Soryang's jaw dropped. Did Keel-san mean he should go see the bee himself? Keel-san confirmed it with a grin. Soryang was ecstatic, reminiscing about harvesting honey during his streamer days and eagerly accepting the chance to do it again. He declared himself a bee expert and was ready to leave immediately. Keel-san chuckled, knowing the prospect would appeal to him. As they prepared, Soryang asked what the giant bee even looked like. Keel-san vaguely answered, "Like bees, I suppose," prompting a sigh from Hwain. And so, the honey harvesting journey began. Keel-san provided supposedly exclusive information, leading them to expect no competition. However, upon arrival, they found another group already there, loudly arguing that they had rights to the honey because they'd purchased information fair and square. Soryang cautiously asked if they happened to buy their info from a man with scruffy hair and a prominent facial mole. The other group confirmed, surprised he knew the description. They remained defiant, refusing to back down. Soryang recognized the description instantly. It was the scammers from before. He realized with mounting frustration that those crooks had sold the same information multiple times. Before Soryang could fully vent about the dirty scammers, Keel-san stepped forward, his voice dangerously low, questioning how dare they insult the Sichuan Tang clan. The opposing group froze, terrified upon hearing the clan's name. Soryang inwardly groaned. So much for his peaceful honey harvesting trip. Before setting out, Keel-san reminded Soryang to be cautious on his first journey outside the clan grounds, emphasizing the importance of remembering his identity as family. He then gave Soryang a surprising instruction. Keel-san declared Soryang would lead the accompanying warriors, stating it was time he learned to manage others. Soryang stammered, questioning his ability to lead, especially with Hwain present. Keel-san chuckled, explaining that since Hwain was Soryang's partner, he held the highest authority on this mission. Flustered by the term partner, Soryang blushed, while Hwain cheerfully offered her support and encouragement. Determined, Soryang vowed to do his best. Deep in the forest, the Tang clan contingent encountered the lurking groups of competitors who had been scared off earlier. Soryang felt a moment of uncertainty, wondering how to handle the situation. Woolgang, the stern leader of the Venom Blood unit, asked Soryang if they should share information. Before Soryang could respond, Hwain angrily questioned who dared resell Tang clan information, noting their audacity. Selling information purchased from their clan was a serious offense. The competitors recognized Hwain immediately, whispering fearfully about the presence of the infamous poisonous flower of the 3 flowers of Murim. One leader, clasping his hands respectfully, announced the Central Wind sect's withdrawal, stating they had no intention of interfering. Representatives from the Noble Origin sect and the White Jade Ghostslayer sect quickly followed suit, cursing the scammer under their breath as they retreated. Soryang watched them leave, surprised by the swift resolution, wondering if that was all it took. Woolgang, however, expressed doubt, certain it wasn't truly resolved. He suspected the unorthodox factions wouldn't back off so easily. Woolgang ordered his men to set up camp nearby and maintain watch, dispatching Gu Pei to scout the competitors' location, certain that they were merely hiding and waiting. Huayin offered Soryang a reassuring smile. They finally reached their destination, the location of the golden-haired king beehive, nestled within a large tree. Giant, fuzzy bees buzzed around the entrance, exiting and entering the dark opening. Soryang and Huayin marveled at the sight. It was Huayin's first time seeing them, and she noted their immense size. Both commented on their unexpected cuteness and fluffy fur, understanding the golden hair name. Woolgang observed that the colony seemed relatively small, perhaps only a few hundred bees. Soryang agreed, noting it made sense given their large individual size. He explained that a typical hive might contain thousands, clarifying the term colony for Woolgang. Huayin was amazed Soryang could estimate numbers just by watching the hive entrance activity. Just then, Gu Pei returned silently. He reported to Woolgang that the competitors had indeed set up camp on the opposite side. Gu Pei conveyed that they weren't doing much, just waiting, but would likely act if the Tang clan made move. Woolgang decided they would wait until nightfall and harvest the honey using the traditional Tang clan method. He explained that burning mugwort leaves would produce smoke to calm the bees, allowing for safe harvesting. Soryang praised the method. However, Gu Pei pointed out a complication. The wind was currently blowing towards them, which would render the smoke ineffective or worse, blow it back onto them. Soryang suddenly brightened with an idea. He reasoned that if the wind was blowing towards them, it could actually mask their scent from the bees. Before anyone could react, he declared he'd take the chance for a quick visit, dashing towards the hive. Huayin cried out in alarm, trying to hold him back, reminding him how dangerous the mid-level venomous creatures were. Soryang, caught in his scientific curiosity, just wanted to touch one briefly. As Huayin pulled him, he stumbled, dislodging a rock. That tumbled down the slope, bouncing near the hive entrance. Both Soryang and Huayin froze in horror. Instantly, the hive exploded with furious, buzzing bees pouring out. Huayin grabbed Soryang and yelled for them to run, narrowly escaping the angry swarm as she dragged him away. They were thoroughly scolded afterward for the reckless stunt. Later, Soryang sat pondering their predicament. Using smoke against the wind seemed impossible, risking being caught between angry bees and opportunistic competitors. These golden-haired king bees were clearly different from any bees he knew. He recalled the earlier rock incident, realizing the bees detected ground vibrations from over 30 meters away, an incredible sensitivity exceeding even ground beetles. Huayin found him sitting alone. She had brought the centipedes, Nova, Myra, and Grace, who had finished their meal and kept wandering off. Soryang thanked her, gently telling the chirping creatures on his shoulders to stay still. Huayin sat beside him, asking if he'd made any progress. Soryang admitted he needed more observation time. Huayin apologized for pressuring him, encouraging him to take his time. As they sat, Huayin pointed towards the old hive tree, where two large monkeys were screeching and fighting aggressively near the base, looking like they were auditioning for Planet of the Apes, Miram edition. Huayin remarked on how angry the monkeys seemed. Suddenly, Soryang's expression changed. He asked Huayin if she smelled something sweet. A strange, cloying scent began emanating strongly from the agitated hive tree. Soryang stared in dawning realization. Pheromones. He urgently told Huayin they needed to leave immediately. The bees were about to swarm. Huayin instantly understood. She grabbed Soryang, leaping away with incredible speed, pulling him clear just as the situation escalated. Looking back, they saw the golden-haired king bees erupt from the hive in a massive, terrifying cloud, descending upon the fighting monkeys. The monkeys were quickly overwhelmed. It was a close call. Catching their breath, Huayin asked Soryang how he knew the bees would attack, noting he warned her before they even heard buzzing. Soryang explained it was the scent. Huang commented that now he mentioned it, there was a faint smell like magnolia. Soryang froze, shocked. Could Huang actually distinguish the scent of pheromones? He cautiously asked if she recognized the specific scent. She confirmed it smelled exactly like magnolia flowers. That was it, Soryang exclaimed, suddenly grabbing Huang in an embrace. Much to her flustered surprise, a light bulb going off above his head. He declared with a sly grin that he'd thought of a way to wipe out those unorthodox bastards going after his honeybees. That night, the competitor groups gathered around crackling campfires, seemingly relaxed despite their earlier retreat. Some men drank heartily from flasks, boasting about the taste while roasting fish. One wondered aloud when the Tang clan might finally make their move for the honey, noting how quiet things had become after their initial scouting. Another speculated they might act soon. A third man questioned if mere beehives were truly valuable. The first scoffed, asking if he'd lived under a rock, explaining that candles made from the golden-haired king bee's beeswax were treasures reserved for the imperial family. Their plan was simple. Let the Tang clan take the honey, and they would snatch the valuable beehives left behind. He chuckled darkly, adding that if the Tang clan failed and got wiped out, the prize would be even greater. The conversation shifted, mentioning the notorious poisonous flower, Tang Huang. They agreed it would be wise to keep an eye on her, maybe ensure she didn't meet an unfortunate end during the chaos. The men leered, rubbing their hands together with unpleasant excitement at the thought of the famed beauty. One even joked that saving her might lead to becoming the Tang clan's son-in-law, remarking that such a life-saving grace must surely be repaid, showing peak simp behavior. Suddenly, one man paused, sniffing the air. He commented on a nice smell drifting through the camp. Another suggested it might be the poisonous flower's natural scent, imagining it must be intoxicating. The sweet, potent fragrance wafted through the moonlit woods. A different man looked up, alerted by a strange noise. High on a nearby rock, silhouetted against the full moon, a large, hairy shape appeared. The competitors scrambled to their feet, looking around nervously. Their confusion turned to terror as they recognized the sound and shape. Golden-haired king bees, and not just one or two. A massive swarm descended from the darkness, engulfing the camp in a terrifying onslaught of buzzing and stinging. Men screamed, cried for help, and scattered in panic, overwhelmed by the furious bees. The attack was swift and brutal, leaving behind only chaos and a strange trail of pinkish pulp leading away from the decimated camp. From a safe distance, Soryang, Huang, and Woolgang watched the bees follow the pink trail. Woolgang confirmed Soryang's plan had worked. The bees were all heading in one direction, away from the hive. Huang, amazed, asked Soryang what he had done. He admitted he hadn't expected such a furious reaction just from some crushed flowers and fruits. Huang pointed out that was all he seemed to do. Soryang explained that the particular scent he created happened to trigger the bees' attack command. He elaborated on pheromones, the chemical signals animals use to communicate, noting that social insects like bees rely heavily on them. The specific pheromone he replicated using magnolia flowers and fruit was isoamyl acetate, the exact scent bees release when launching a full-scale attack. Huang found the connection fascinating. Soryang added that her ability to recognize that specific scent was even more fascinating, which she attributed to the heightened senses required for Tang clan poison arts. With the immediate threat seemingly diverted, Soryang looked towards the now quiet hive tree. He suggested that with the bees off on their rampage, they should head inside to harvest the honey. Carrying a bundle, presumably for collection, they approached the dark entrance. Woolgang, ever cautious, offered to take the lead. Stepping inside, Soryang gasped. The honeycomb structure within was immense, far larger than expected. Woolgang agreed. It was amazing, the golden hexagonal cells covering the interior walls. Woolgang thankfully noted that all the bees seemed to have left. Soryang looked closer, however, and pointed out that there was no honey anywhere. Woolgang squinted, confused, confirming the comb was bare. He found it incredibly strange, something unprecedented. Soryang had a hunch. He observed there were no eggs either, connecting the lack of brood to the missing honey. He deduced the bees had been preparing to migrate all along, consuming their stores and carrying the honey in their stomachs. He theorized the excessive human presence likely triggered this decision. Hwine agreed it made sense. Soryang further explained that bees stop laying eggs when preparing to migrate, as they lack the capacity to care for larvae during the journey. He paused, a thoughtful expression on his face, then turned to Woolgang. Soryang asked how long Woolgang could maintain his mobility arts without rest. Woolgang replied he could manage about half a day at a steady pace. Before Woolgang could ask why, Gu shouted frantically from outside, warning that the golden-haired king bees were coming back. Indeed, the swarm was returning to the hive. Gu urged them to leave immediately. Woolgang ordered a retreat, telling Soryang to give up. Hwine grabbed Soryang's collar to pull him away. Woolgang pleaded for them to get out now. As Hwine dragged him out, Soryang quickly snatched something small and golden from the comb. They regrouped with the others outside, catching their breath, relieved they escaped just in time. Hwine started to express her relief, then noticed Soryang cradling something. She asked what he was carrying. Soryang grinned, holding up a large, fuzzy bee with a small crown, identifying it as the golden-haired queen bee. Since there was no honey, he reasoned, he brought the one who could make it, a true big-brain move in his eyes. Woolgang and Hwine stared, their faces paling in utter horror. The queen bee let out a loud, indignant buzz, clearly unhappy about being bee-napped. Soryang calmly informed Woolgang that the swarm would realize their queen was missing any second now and start chasing them. With a cheerful grin, he declared, "Let's run," initiating a frantic life-or-death chase. The frantic retreat from the hive continued, Soryang clutching the buzzing queen bee. He tried to soothe the agitated queen, assuring her he'd take her somewhere safe where they wouldn't be bothered. Several exhausting days had passed since the honeybee race of death began. The group, including Soryang, Hwine, and the remaining Venom Blood Unit members, were pushed to their limits, sacrificing sleep and constantly using their mobility arts to evade the relentless swarm. By the time they finally reached a temporary safe zone, several warriors had already fallen behind, utterly spent. Soryang, barely keeping pace himself, swore that the first thing he'd demand upon returning was proper mobility arts training. Suddenly, another warrior cried out and collapsed. It was Huang Duryong of the Venom Blood Unit, unable to continue. Soryang desperately hoped putting enough distance between them and the swarm would deter the bees, urging everyone to keep running. Gu nervously asked if they could truly escape. Soryang could only offer a shaky probably. 3 days later, the relentless pursuit finally took its toll on Woolgang. He collapsed, apologizing to Soryang, unable to go further. Only Soryang and Hwine remained, both nearing their absolute limits, the queen bee still buzzing irritably in Soryang's arms. Hwine, despite her exhaustion, offered to carry Soryang. He weakly protested, thinking it better to keep running himself, however slowly. Seeing his state, Hwine paused, covering her face for a moment, then declared with renewed determination that she could do it. A member of the Tang clan never gives up. Finally, they stumbled towards the familiar gates of the Tang clan estate. The guards looked bewildered, spotting the young lady returning in such a state. One guard cried out in alarm as Hwine, practically carrying Soryang, staggered past them. Word spread quickly, and family members were summoned immediately. Keel-san and Mu-zong rushed out, demanding to know what happened upon seeing Hwine's return. They found her supporting a disheveled Soryang, both looking utterly exhausted. Mu-zong angrily demanded an explanation from Soryang. Soryang quickly clarified, urging his father-in-law to calm down, explaining that Hwine had exhausted herself using mobility arts nonstop for 10 days. Mu-zong, however, dismissed this, declaring there was no time and they must hurry to the training grounds. Confused, Soryang held up the golden-haired queen bee, explaining that the swarm would follow her there soon, and they needed to reach the ancient tree designated as its new home. Muzong roared with laughter, finding the boy truly something else, while Keelsan looked flabbergasted, asking if Soryong seriously returned with the queen bee instead of the honey. Muzong, still chuckling, urged them onward. He grabbed Soryong, queen bee and all, and leaped toward the training grounds with incredible speed, soaring over the estate rooftops. Soryong yelped in surprise midair. He then warned his grandfather that the bee swarm was following them closely. Muzong noted the large number, jokingly asking if Soryong brought the entire hive. He accelerated, shouting they were almost there. They landed hard near the ancient tree. Soryong stumbled forward, still clutching the queen. He addressed the buzzing queen bee, presenting the massive tree as her new home. He asked if it was acceptable. The queen bee hovered for a moment, then buzzed affirmatively, seeming pleased with the accommodations. Muzong urged Soryong to get clear as the swarm was arriving. Just as they moved away, the sky darkened as thousands of golden-haired king bees descended, covering the ancient tree like a living blanket. The queen bee buzzed happily, rejoining her colony. The entire tree seemed to vibrate with their collective buzzing. Muzong remarked he'd never seen anything like it. Soryong breathed a sigh of relief. Mission accomplished. The golden-haired queen bee successfully captured. Later, the exhausted bees were seen lapping up sugar water provided in basins. The entire relocated colony drank deeply. Soryong watched, pleased, reflecting that goodwill often begins with a meal, glad that a substance similar to refined sugar existed in this world. This offering would lessen their wariness, and maybe, just maybe, they'd eventually recognize him as their new master. Suddenly, Soryong jolted upright. He'd completely forgotten something crucial. He hesitantly asked Keelsan about Lady Hwain's condition. Keelsan gave him a wry look, questioning why he was only asking now. He informed Soryong that Hwain had been taken to her mother-in-law to rest, then asked incredulously if Soryong had really run all the way back from the forest with the bees chasing them. Soryong sheepishly confirmed it, mentally asking forgiveness. He explained they barely managed 4 hours of sleep daily. The rest was nonstop running. Keelsan sighed in exasperation, while Muzong chuckled heartily. Muzong then fixed Soryong with a serious look, asking about the fate of the Venom Blood Unit members. Soryong winced, guessing they were probably collapsed somewhere along the road back, and realized he needed to retrieve them. Thankfully, the narrative confirmed the members eventually returned safely to their families. Sometime later, Soryong visited Hwain, who was recovering in her room. She informed him the golden-haired king bees had regained their strength. Soryong added that they were already gathering nectar from the poisonous flowers on the Tang Clan mountain, a sight Hwain found adorable. Their conversation was interrupted by Gu Pei bursting in, looking panicked. He urged Soryong to come outside immediately, explaining that something was wrong with the bees. They seemed to be searching for something agitatedly. Soryong and Hwain rushed outside. Gu Pei reported frantically that the bees were flying around erratically. The bees ignored the humans, buzzing around anxiously. Suddenly, several bees darted towards Soryong, landing gently on his head and shoulders. Hwain asked worriedly if he was okay. Soryong asked the bees why they were acting strangely. One bee nudged his foot, then flew towards the ancient tree. Soryong looked startled as the bees seemed to lift him slightly, urging him forward. Hwain watched in astonishment as Soryong was gently guided by the bees. One landed on his head. He asked them why they were fussing over their hive. The bee on his head buzzed insistently, nudging him towards the tree's entrance. Soryong hesitantly agreed, understanding they wanted him to go inside. He cautiously approached the entrance. Inside, he saw the bees had already built a significant portion of new honeycomb and were diligently gathering honey. He looked around, puzzled. The queen bee hovered before him, buzzing softly. Soryong asked if she wanted him to lift her up. She buzzed again, and before he knew it, several bees clung to him, making him unable to move. The queen bee hovered directly in front of his face, looking intently at him. Soryong stammered, asking her to wait. The queen bee suddenly lunged forward, pressing her mouth against his in a bizarre kiss. Soryong's eyes swirled as a strange sensation flowed into him. A golden energy pulsed from the point of contact. The queen bee pulled back, leaving a drop of golden liquid on Soryong's lips. He sputtered, spitting it out instinctively. Blushing furiously, he pointed at the queen bee, exclaiming that was his first kiss and demanding to know what she was doing. He felt a dizzying warmth spread through him. He collapsed to the ground, his vision blurring as his body flushed with heat. Looking up weakly at the queen bee, he managed to ask what she had just fed him. Soryong collapsed inside the hive, a strange sensation washing over him. It started as an odd tickle, quickly escalating into intense, burning heat accompanied by a racing pulse. He weakly gasped, glaring at the queen bee hovering nearby, demanding to know what she had just forced him to eat. The queen merely buzzed softly. Outside, Hwain frantically alerted Muzong that Soryong was acting strangely, his body radiating heat as if he'd consumed a powerful elixir. Later, Soryong slowly regained consciousness, finding himself in the Tang clan's medical hall with Hwain watching him. She explained that she and her grandfather had rushed over when they saw the bees dragging him away, found him collapsed, and brought him there for treatment. She asked if he remembered what transpired. The memory flooded back, the unexpected kiss from a queen bee. Soryong covered his face in despair, lamenting his first kiss in this world being stolen by an insect, which made Hwain ask worriedly if something was wrong. She offered to call her grandfather, but Soryong quickly waved her off, assuring her it was just a momentary reaction. He took a breath to compose himself, explaining that the queen bee had fed him whatever she normally ate, and that was likely the cause of his reaction. When Hwain inquired further, Soryong admitted he didn't know the exact name, but tentatively called it king bee elixir. He elaborated, drawing on his biological knowledge, explaining that worker bees subsist on nectar and pollen. Hwain then asked the crucial question, what did the queen bee eat? Soryong revealed that from birth until death, the queen consumes only the king bee elixir, specially made by the workers. The realization struck him. The substance was royal jelly, the exclusive sustenance of the queen. He then mentioned the elixir possessed a special effect. While ordinary worker bees lived short lives, the queen, consuming the elixir, could live up to 60 times longer, he explained excitedly, causing Hwain to urge him to calm down. Hwain processed this information, the mystery now solved. She pointed out that his novice internal cultivation technique, the 5 poisons returning technique, couldn't fully absorb such potent energy. However, considering the standard golden-haired king bee honey contained roughly 2 months' worth of internal energy, and this elixir was exponentially more potent, he had essentially absorbed the equivalent of 10 years' worth of internal energy in one go. She congratulated him on the incredibly lucky, albeit weird, encounter. Soryong was stunned by the magnitude of the gain. Hwain hesitated, then advised him to look in a silver mirror later, hinting that the king bee elixir might have other, unforeseen effects. Soryong wondered what these other effects could be. Sitting up, he glanced down at his unexpectedly defined torso, momentarily confused about what a silver mirror even was. Catching his reflection, he noticed something seemed strange about his appearance. He approached the mirror, wondering if royal jelly always had these kinds of effects, questioning where his former country bumpkin look had vanished to. His cultivation had indeed improved dramatically, and his skin felt incredibly soft and smooth, almost like a woman's skin. A horrifying thought crossed his mind regarding the queen bee's specific royal jelly. He stood dumbfounded for a moment, then quickly checked his lower body. Relief washed over him as he confirmed everything was still anatomically correct, collapsing onto the floor. Close call. He decided he should thank Muzong, recalling Hwain mentioning her grandfather had guided his chi, saving him from potential disaster. As he walked through the estate, he sensed an unusual number of eyes on him, initially attributing it to his increased internal energy. However, spotting 2 servant girls whispering and giggling as they looked his way, he decided a strategic retreat was in order. He sought out the family at the Sichuan clan restaurant house, peeking inside cautiously. The family, including Kiel-san, Mu-zong, Hua-yin, and her mother, were gathered for a meal. His mother-in-law greeted him warmly, commenting on how much more handsome he looked now and inquiring about his well-being. Soryong politely reassured her, apologizing for causing worry. She brushed it off, happy about his fortunate encounter. She then teased him about his improved complexion, suggesting Hua-yin must be envious, causing Hua-yin to blush furiously. Hua-yin quickly urged Soryong to take a seat. He joined the meal. Kiel-san asked if he was feeling better, which Soryong confirmed, apologizing again. Soryong then formally thanked Mu-zong for his intervention. Mu-zong simply congratulated him again on his luck. Kiel-san then got to the point, asking Soryong to elaborate on what exactly happened with the King Bee elixir. Soryong considered how to phrase it. He explained that the Queen Bee seemed to take a liking to her new home and, as a gesture of gratitude, dragged him inside the hive and fed him the elixir. The family found this interaction fascinating, remarking on how even mid-level venomous creatures could show gratitude. Kiel-san and Mu-zong immediately saw the potential, wondering if there was a way to acquire more King Bee elixir, recognizing its immense value to the Tang clan. Soryong's mother-in-law eagerly asked if he could obtain more. The table fell silent expectantly. Hua-yin nervously echoed the question. Soryong explained that while they could trick ordinary bees into producing royal jelly with artificial queen cells, attempting such a trick on the highly intelligent golden-haired king bees would likely result in swift, painful retaliation, becoming unwilling beehives themselves. Furthermore, he pointed out that royal jelly is typically baby food produced by workers, but what he consumed came directly from the queen herself, raising doubts if it was even the same substance. Deciding honesty was the only path, Soryong stated frankly that he didn't believe obtaining more was possible. His mother-in-law and Kiel-san pressed him, asking why not. Kiel-san wondered if it tasted bad or had a strange smell. Soryong shook his head. It wasn't about taste or smell. He clarified that the King Bee elixir came directly from the queen bee's mouth, and the only way to receive it seemed to be through direct contact with the queen herself, a method involving forming a bond by pressing lips together, with the queen's tongue entering the recipient's mouth to transfer the elixir. His mother-in-law and Mu-zong reacted with audible disgust and shock. Kiel-san grimly concluded that obtaining the elixir was impossible unless the queen specifically favored another individual, as she had Soryong. Chopsticks dropped onto the table with a clatter. Hua-yin stared blankly, processing the lip-to-lip transfer method. A look of dawning horror spread across her face as the implication hit her. Soryong had kissed the golden-haired queen bee. Under the quiet glow of the moon, a serene pavilion overlooked a misty valley. Inside, a hand gripped the wooden railing tightly. This was Ju Junghak, the formidable Fist Emperor and leader of the Murm Alliance. A woman announced she had brought tea, and he permitted her entry. She carried a tray with a delicate teapot, informing him she had prepared white, dew tea from Shishan Mountain. Recognizing the tea from his hometown, Junghak thanked her, accepting the cup. She poured the fragrant brew. He took a sip. Just then, the woman announced the arrival of General Jegal who. Junghak, questioning the late-hour visit, allowed him in. Jegal, who entered, apologizing for the interruption, explaining he bore an urgent message from the Sichuan Tang clan that required immediate attention. Junghak acknowledged the urgency and bade him speak. The woman quietly observed. Jegal, who revealed the news, concerned the blood-hand Rakshasa, Tak Unyang. He reported the Tang clan had retrieved Tak Unyang's head and his secret manual for the blood-hand poison art. Junghak reacted with explosive anger, demanding to know how they obtained such a horrifying manual. Jegal, who explained Tak Unyang's history, his defeat, and subsequent seclusion on Hainan Island. He then added an even more interesting detail. The infamous demon was defeated not by a seasoned warrior, but by a young poison master from the Tang clan, leaving Junghak stunned. Jegal, who suggested the tale was quite amusing and would intrigue the alliance leader. Preparing to elaborate. Meanwhile, Back in the Sichuan Tang Clan Patriarch's Hall, a meeting was underway. The elders were furious that information about the scammers tricking competitors near the beehive had been leaked, sullying the Tang clan's reputation. Soryong whispered to Huayin, surprised the elders weren't speaking harshly to Keel-san. Huayin explained that family honor was paramount, uniting even the branch elders against outside insults. They were all one family in the end. Keel-san declared they had already requested the beggar's sect to identify the culprits and that he planned to personally visit the Ingchuan commandery. An elder asked how Keel-san intended to handle the perpetrators. Keel-san chillingly listed a sequence of poisons: soul annihilating, blood flaming, and intestine disabling, followed by the 7-step soul severing poison once the initial toxins took effect. Soryong muttered nervously about the horrifying cocktail of poisons. Keel-san ordered the poison annihilation unit summoned immediately, preparing for departure. The unit assembled swiftly. Keel-san addressed Soryong, stating he was leaving and entrusting him to take care of things in his absence. Soryong wished him safe travels, but Keel-san retorted that it was the scammers who needed to worry. With a vow to deliver unforgettable retribution, Keel-san and his unit departed. Soryong asked Huayin about the unit, unfamiliar with them. Huayin explained they handle the clan's slightly rough work, their primary responsibility being elimination, hence the name Poison Annihilation Unit. Soryong found slightly rough to be quite an understatement. As they walked, they were interrupted by the branch elders. Soryong and Huayin greeted them respectfully. An elder acknowledged Soryong's recent lucky encounter. Soryong confirmed, assuming they meant the royal jelly incident. The elder cleared his throat, stating they wished to ask a small favor. Soryong inquired cautiously. The elder quickly denied any interest in the king bee honey or elixir, claiming such treasures find their destined owners naturally. Hesitantly, Soryong asked what they needed. The elder leaned in conspiratorially, whispering about that thing, the ground beetle medicine, implying Soryong had authority over it since he made it. Soryong understood immediately. Feigning difficulty adjusting to clan life, he suggested that if the esteemed elders were willing to assist him, he'd happily share. The elders eagerly agreed, promising full support and comfortable living, patting him on the back. Just then, Muzong arrived, asking about the cheerful conversation. The elders hastily claimed it was just friendly bonding. Muzong chuckled, noting they finally seemed to appreciate Soryong's true value. Huayin looked unimpressed. Their awkward exchange was cut short by a guard bursting in with a major problem. The lord of Sichuan province was at death's door. Soryong immediately asked if the lord had failed to follow the prescribed dosage. The guard confirmed the worst. Thrilled by the medicine's effects, the lord had taken a new concubine and started consuming more than double the recommended amount. Muzong sighed, realizing he must leave at once. He instructed Soryong, as the only man left, to protect the women. Soryong agreed, watching Muzong depart swiftly. Left alone, Soryong mused, well, what could possibly go wrong, right? Later, Soryong and Huayin discussed his progress with the 10 Poisons dual origin art. Huayin explained it was like upgrading from a single large orb, 5 venoms returning, to a twin-cylinder engine, granting poison resistance and the ability to project chi. Excited, Soryong asked if he could truly release chi or imbue objects. He decided to try immediately, facing a nearby training dummy. Taking a dagger, he channeled his internal energy, rotating the 2 orbs as instructed. As the chi fully circulated, he released it. The dagger shot forward, imbued with green energy, striking the dummy with explosive force. Soryong celebrated his success, while Huayin praised his perfect chi imbuement. Unseen nearby, hidden assassins observed the display. One noted they might have been noticed, suggesting elimination, but the leader dismissed it as coincidence. Holding a copied manual, the leader declared their mission to secure the Blood Hand poison art complete and ordered a swift departure. They commented on the Tang clan's lax security, anticipating an easy escape. Suddenly, the leader paused. One assassin asked if the others smelled the sweet scent lingering in the air. They looked around cautiously. From the bushes, a golden-haired king bee emerged, buzzing softly. A sudden scream pierced the night air over the Tang clan estate. Soryong and Hwain reacted instantly, startled by the sound and sensing an unwelcome presence. They spotted figures in the shadows. Intruders, one grappling frantically with a golden-haired king bee clinging to his face. Hwain leaped into action. The assassin leader, seeing their cover blown and his subordinate Benji harassed, ordered a retreat. Hwain moved swiftly to intercept them, demanding they stop. She unleashed her whip, a blur of black energy striking towards the fleeing figures. The assassins scattered, narrowly dodging the attack. Hwain expressed surprise at their agility. The assassin, still wrestling with the bee, finally tore it off and, enraged, charged directly at Hwain, screaming his intent to kill. Soryong yelled a warning. The assassin brought his sword down, but Hwain met the blow, blocking it cleanly with her own weapon. The force of the impact jarred the attacker. With a swift counter-motion, Hwain disarmed and incapacitated him. Soryong rushed over, asking if she was all right. Hwain confirmed she was fine. Soryong looked down at the fallen intruder, asking who he was and if he was dead, noticing a small bee buzzing near his shoulder. Hwain observed the body grimly. The man had bitten down on a poison capsule, choosing suicide over capture, clearly wanting to hide something. Alarms rang out across the estate as guards shouted about intruders. Hwain announced they would organize a pursuit team, instructing Soryong to follow her along with Gu Pei, the Venom Blood Unit leader. The chase began, heading into the dark woods. The Tang warriors surged forward, determined to capture the remaining assassins at all costs. Soryong, eager to test his newly enhanced speed, invoked his twin-cylinder engine technique. He shot forward with incredible velocity, but, lacking control, promptly tripped and tumbled down a slope. Gu Pei called out in surprise. Soryong landed amidst surprised Tang warriors, thanking them for cushioning his fall, admitting he thought he was done for. He then registered his surroundings, recoiling in shock. He had landed right in the middle of a snake den. Gu Pei noted it was a serpent's nest, explaining that snakes often gather where Inshi is strong and are unusually aggressive during this season, urging vigilance. Soryong agreed nervously, identifying the snakes as tiger-striped water snakes, also known as red-necked keelbacks, finding their current hostility unusual. Blaming himself for the delay and noticing impending rain, Soryong urged everyone to move quickly. The pursuit resumed, spotting the fleeing assassins ahead. The assassins cursed their luck as the rain began. The Tang pursuers finally cornered the remaining assassins in a rocky clearing under a flash of lightning. Gu Pei ordered his men to tighten the encirclement, declaring the escape over. Both sides drew weapons, facing off tensely. Gu Pei ordered the attack. The clash began, blades ringing in the downpour. One assassin cursed the Tang warriors as insects and cut down a guard trying to block his path. He lunged forward, only to be parried by Gu Pei. The assassin launched a counterattack, the triple mirage kill. Gu Pei dodged the whirling blades, but the assassin deflected a thrown dagger. Yet the dagger grazed him, drawing blood. Gu Pei remarked that the assassin was lucky, as the rain had likely diluted the poison on the throwing dagger. He glared fiercely at the remaining intruders. Suddenly, a booming laugh echoed through the clearing, mocking the gathered pitiful insects. Gu Pei demanded to know who was there. Before anyone could react, one of the cornered assassins exploded in a shower of blood. A menacing figure emerged, his eyes glowing red. Gu Pei frantically warned his men, identifying the newcomer as a martial master and ordering a retreat. The figure chuckled darkly. He asked his remaining subordinate if he had retrieved it. The assassin confirmed, presenting the copied manual, noting it wasn't the original. Soryong watched from a distance. Suddenly recognizing the book, it looked like the bad book his grandfather was reading, the one only bad people look at. He shouted to Gu Pei that it was a copy of the Bloodhand Poison Arts secret manual. Gu Pei reacted with disbelief and fury, demanding the identity of the vile scoundrels who would covet such a sinister text. The new arrival, Lord Gu Qianak, confirmed Gu Pei's suspicion about the manual, noting it lacked the crucial formulas but would suffice. He declared it was time to herald their return, granting his subordinate, Blood Glory, permission to unleash the cult's martial arts. He ordered him to leave no one alive. Blood Glory acknowledged the command and turned towards the remaining Tang warriors. He thrust out his hand, and blood erupted from a nearby Tang warrior, coalescing around the assassin's palm. Gu Pei and Soryong watched in horror. The technique was sucking the blood right out of the victim. Lord Gu Qianak confirmed their unspoken fear with a sinister smile, revealing himself as none other than the Bloodhawk Daggerclaw, Lord Gu Qianak, an elder of the blood cult. He then turned his attention to Soryong, noting his excellent condition, and commented with relish that it had been too long since he'd savored the untainted blood of the young. The battle raged in the rain-soaked clearing. Lord Gu Qianak ordered his subordinate, Hyo Liang, to capture the young warriors, commenting that their pure blood was excellent for recovery. Hyo Liang acknowledged and immediately charged towards Soryong. Gu Pei reacted swiftly, ordering his men into the 5-poison annihilation formation to protect Soryong at all costs. Gu Qianak merely scoffed, challenging them to stop his attack. He unleashed a powerful wave of dark energy that swept through the clearing. Gu Pei desperately yelled for Soryong to evade, but the blast radius was large, kicking up debris. As Soryong stumbled, Hyo Liang seized him from behind, gripping him tightly and informing him that the elder desired his pure blood. Held fast, Soryong desperately called out to his boys, commanding his hidden baby centipedes to bite. One immediately latched on a Hyo Liang's hand, causing the assassin to cry out in surprise. Dark veins spread rapidly up Hyo Liang's arm as the potent venom took effect. Soryong used the moment to kick himself free. He was momentarily surprised by how effective his little companions were. Just then, he heard Huayin calling his name. She arrived with reinforcements, rushing to his side, concern etched on her face, while Gu Pei looked relieved by their arrival. Gu Pei quickly updated Huayin on the situation, explaining their attempt with the 5-poison annihilation formation and the sudden attack by the blood cult elder. Huayin's eyes widened in shock upon hearing about the blood cult. She immediately took command, ordering everyone to assist Gu Pei and transform the defensive formation into the more powerful 9-poison annihilation formation. The Tang warriors regrouped, surrounding the menacing blood cult elder. Gu Qianak observed the commotion with amusement, identifying Soryong as the boy who apparently took down Tak Anyang. He mocked the deceased blood hand Rakshasa, calling him overrated for being killed by mere centipedes. Gu Pei furiously retorted that Gu Qianak would be buried there as well. The elder grinned wickedly, accepting the challenge and preparing to unleash his power. Away from the main confrontation, Soryong tended to a wounded Tang warrior, urging him to hold on while applying bandages. He knew the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Their side was becoming exhausted, while the blood cult elder seemed to replenish his energy by absorbing blood from the fallen. Suddenly, Huayin was struck by a glancing blow, staggering back. Soryong cried out in alarm. She coughed, assuring him she was fine despite the blood trickling from her mouth. She turned to Soryong, urging him to return to the clan immediately and bring more warriors, admitting they were currently outmatched. Soryong felt a surge of frustration. He knew she was right. There was little he could do in this fight. Gu Pei and another warrior pleaded with him to go, promising to hold the line for the sake of the Tang family. Soryong hesitated. Seeing his reluctance, Huayin suddenly dashed away, drawing the enemy's attention. Soryong cursed under his breath, feeling utterly useless. He turned and ran into the dark woods, pushing himself until he was gasping for air. He lost his footing on the slick, muddy ground, tumbling down a slope once again. His centipedes chirped worriedly around him as he lay catching his breath. This felt wrong. He realized that even using his mobility arts at full speed, it would take nearly half a day to reach the clan and return. With most of the clan's experts away, reinforcements wouldn't arrive in time. He stood up, looking back towards the distant sounds of battle. The truth struck him. They hadn't ordered him away because he was useless, but to save him. But why? Was it simply because he was the youngest or the weakest? Was this the famed chivalry of martial artists? He remembered Keel-san's words welcoming him into the family. He admitted to himself that he'd never truly thought about the meaning of family before, always subconsciously feeling like an outsider. Yet, recalling their interactions, Keel-san's guidance, Hwaine's Tsundere-like support, even the elders' begrudging acceptance, he understood. Everyone else already considered him family. Everyone except him. A single tear mixed with the rain on his cheek. He smiled wryly, petting his centipedes, musing that for an assassin clan, they were surprisingly warm-hearted. He stood tall. He looked at his small companions, telling them it was time to go save their mom. With renewed determination, he dashed back towards the fight. He needed to save those people, his family. He forced himself to think, analyzing the situation, blood cult regeneration, the nearby snake den, venomous creatures, poisonous herbs. An idea began to form. He slid down another embankment, landing firmly on his feet. He was back at the snake den. The snakes hissed aggressively, their eyes glowing red in the dim light, and his centipedes reacted with fear. He gently reassured them, telling them to wait there, that it would be fine. They whimpered but settled down, looking on with big, teary eyes. Soryang turned towards the pit and, taking a deep breath, leaped into the mass of vipers. He grinned. He was Spicy Fabre, after all, and it was time to handle this the Spicy Fabre way. Soryang mentally reviewed the properties of the red-necked keelback, also known as the flower snake. He stood within the snake den, surrounded by the vipers, having absorbed their potent venom. He recalled that unlike vipers, these snakes possessed small venomous fangs in their molar region, making injection difficult, yet their bites still packed a punch. In terms of toxicity, they were considered the most venomous land snake in East Asia. Their venom even surpassed that of a black mamba. Thankfully, his Tang clan internal energy techniques granted him resistance, ensuring his survival. His baby centipedes watched anxiously from the edge of the pit. Soryang reassured them, telling them to calm down as he was coming out now. He glanced down at his hand, seeing the faint marks left by the snakes. Enough venom absorbed for his plan. He prepared to leave the pit. Suddenly, he felt something unexpected. The snakes weren't attacking him, but were instead coiling around his arms and legs. He cursed inwardly at this unforeseen development. His centipedes suddenly landed on his head and shoulders, chirping excitedly. One faced off against a hissing keelback, puffing itself up aggressively. Then, the smallest centipede, Grace, leaped forward with surprising ferocity, driving back the snakes coiling around Soryang. Soryang stared, surprised by Grace's intervention. He thanked the little centipede, remarking on the youngest's toughness. He gently acknowledged the others, knowing they were worried about their dad. With his unexpected snake entourage clinging to him, Soryang declared it was time to return to Mom. Back at the battle, Hwaine fought desperately, knowing they were all going to die if things continued. Gu Qianak drained another warrior, leaving him a desiccated husk, laughing about how easy it all was. Hwaine desperately hoped Soryang had escaped safely. She ordered her remaining warriors to keep the elder check from afar and send another signal, as the rain would soon clear. One of the exhausted branch elders urged Hwaine to escape as Soryang did. She refused vehemently, stating a direct descendant couldn't flee while others fought, questioning how she could face her father if she failed to protect her clan members. Gu Qianak interrupted her impassioned speech, tired of the defiance, declaring that the Tang clan never abandons its own. He'd had enough of his toys running away. He grinned, proposing a new idea. Turning the entire Tang clan into a wasteland would be an amusing way to announce the blood sect's return. Gu Pei and Hwaine understood his intent. He planned to let none leave alive. Huayin prepared her whip, vowing that even if they perished, she would take one of his arms. Him and Ikud Helisov. Guchianak faced them, ready for the final clash. Just then, a voice declared that the Tang clan never retreats and never abandons its own. Huayin looked up in disbelief. Soryong had returned. She questioned why he came back. Soryong gently placed his centipedes aside, telling them to wait, reminding Huayin of her own words about the Tang clan's resolve. He tossed aside his soaked upper garment, declaring that he, too, was part of the Tang clan. He grabbed daggers, preparing to fight and charge towards the blood cult elder. Huayin screamed for him to stop. Guchianak laughed maniacally, calling Soryong a fool for crawling back after he'd spared him the trouble of killing him. Soryong leaped, daggers flashing. Huayin cried out as Guchianak effortlessly caught Soryong's arm. He sneered, stating he wouldn't refuse if Soryong willingly offered his lifeblood. He reached for Soryong's chest with his blood-draining technique. Soryong grunted, blocking the attack with his forearm at the last second. Guchianak mocked him, pointing out that blood still flowed through the arm he now grasped. The elder began to drain the blood directly from Soryong's arm. Soryong screamed in agony. Huayin and Gu Pei desperately tried to intervene. Guchianak cackled, reveling in the attack, exclaiming how sweet and delicious the boy's lifeblood was. He stomped his foot, unleashing a blood circulation overflowing wave. The shockwave blasted Huayin and the others back. Guchianak chuckled darkly. He commented that the annoying throwing weapons had stopped, thanks to the little brat. Everything was dealt with in one go. He loomed over the fallen Soryong, held protectively by Huayin. Huayin coughed, promising Soryong a painless death. Soryong looked up at her, confused. Suddenly, Guchianak staggered back, gagging, demanding to know what Soryong had done. He felt his internal energy rapidly dissipating. He couldn't believe it. His cult's techniques should have rendered such poisons ineffective. He clutched his head in disbelief and agony, screaming at Soryong, demanding to know what he was. Soryong, weakly held by Huayin, smirked and informed the elder that he was his natural enemy. Guchianak staggered back, weakened by the internal energy dissipating poison Soryong had introduced into his system, questioning the meaning of being called a natural enemy. Huayin looked on, concerned for the weakened, shirtless Soryong who was leaning on her. The elder clutched his chest, bewildered by the sudden affliction. He realized with horror that the blood he controlled, the very source of his power, no longer obeyed his will. The blood cult's domination felt so close, yet now slipped through his fingers. He refused to collapse there. With a final surge of rage, Guchianak lunged, screaming his intent to kill. Huayin reacted instantly, her whip lashing out like a black serpent. The whip struck true, catching the weakened elder off guard. Huayin felt the impact connect, surprised that her attack had landed on the previously untouchable martial artist. The whip coiled around his neck. Guchianak glared with pure hatred, furious that the brat had somehow disabled his blood art. He vowed to kill them all as the blood cult returned to plague the world. Huayin, however, simply told him to shut up and die already. With a final, decisive pull, her whip severed the elder's head. Gu Pei watched the head fall, stunned. He erupted in joy, declaring it a victory. The remaining Tang warriors cheered, shouting that the young lady had slain the blood cult elder. Huayin turned to Soryong, asking what on earth had just happened with the ghost-like elder. Soryong, delirious, mumbled something about Big Sis Huayin, causing her to blush and question who he was calling Big Sis. He then weakly stated he needed to be bitten by tiger-striped water snakes to treat the poison. Before collapsing completely, he yelled for someone to get an antidote, claiming he'd been poisoned by the snakes, much to everyone's confusion since they believed the snakes weren't venomous. Soryong slowly regained consciousness, finding Grand Patriarch Muzong and Huayin watching over him, urging him not to move yet. Confused about the situation, Muzong explained it was a relief he was awake, as it had already been 10 days since he collapsed. Soryong reacted with shock at the lost time. Huayin recounted how, thanks to Soryong weakening the elder, she was able to land the final blow, after which they rushed his collapsed body back to the clan. She added the poisoning was severe. Disaster was averted only because Muzong returned quickly. Soryong shuddered, realizing he'd almost died twice from snake bites. Muzong finished his treatment, declaring Soryong should be fine now. Soryong offered his thanks. Muzong, however, had pressing questions. He asked if the tiger-striped water snake truly had venom, and how Soryong defeated the blood cult elder. Soryong began to explain, stating the snake was indeed venomous, possessing two kinds of venom, one inside its mouth and another from glands at the back of its neck. Both Muzong and Huayin were surprised, admitting they didn't know that. Soryong clarified the snake's timid nature and small fangs meant their venomous nature wasn't widely known until recent decades. Muzong then asked if this related to dissipating the elder's energy, considering the blood cult's known immunity to poisons. Soryong confirmed it was a hypothesis. He believed the snake's venom was key. He explained its main component, hemotoxin, is a hemorrhagic toxin that destroys various structures like red blood cell walls and blood vessel linings. Introducing this toxin to blood cultists, who rely on blood for their arts, likely disrupted their power source, a gamble that worked perfectly. Muzong listened intently, impressed. He mused that the snake's venom, 5 times stronger than a viper's and potentially amplified by the Denzin Qi, made it an incredibly powerful creature hidden near Sichuan. He and Huayin praised Soryong for his amazing feat. Muzong then recalled something Huayin mentioned, asking if the blood cult elder really called Soryong his natural enemy, finding the phrase incredibly edgy, like a middle school delusion. Soryong blushed furiously as Muzong laughed, conceding the title fit, given how perfectly Soryong sealed the elder's martial arts. Muzong turned serious, thanking Soryong for protecting their family. He declared his fury at the attack occurring in his absence and swore to rip the blood cult out by the roots. Soryong agreed wholeheartedly, adding that now they knew the cult's weakness, they just needed to collect large quantities of the snake's venom. He vowed to strip those damn mosquito bastards down to their very souls. Since the blood cult's appearance, the Tang clan had been in a state of emergency. Many warriors were injured, some killed, prompting allied Orthodox Murim factions to gather at the Tang clan to offer aid. Muzong acknowledged the casualties were minimal considering they faced a peak martial artist, but expressed deep concern about the renewed bloodshed the blood cult's return signified. He cursed the cultists for abducting people to drain blood, recalling their mass slaughters 30 years prior that made them sworn enemies of Murim. Soryong interjected, stating things would be different this time. Muzong placed a hand on his shoulder, declaring with a twinkle in his eye that the Sichuan Tang clan was their heaven-ordained nemesis, their natural enemy, deliberately teasing Soryong. Muzong chuckled at Soryong's reaction. He then made a request. He explained that people from the Murim alliance would arrive soon, including military forces, and he planned to showcase the venom Soryong discovered, sharing the blood cult's weakness with everyone. Soryong readily agreed, stating it was for the greater good. Muzong smiled, having expected that answer. He then shared news he thought would make Soryong happy. The modifications to the Hall of 10,000 Poisons were complete, and Soryong was now officially its manager. Soryong reacted with pure elation. At long last, his dream was becoming reality. He will collect them all and be Pokemon King. Muzong added that, per Soryong's suggestion, they had also prepared a sunlit pavilion, acknowledging the need for a solid foundation to properly raise the tiger-striped water snakes. Soryong thanked him profusely. Muzong encouraged him to do his best for Murim's sake. Soryong felt amazing. He walked with Huayin towards his new facility, arriving at a building marked Toxic Creature Garden. Huayin explained it was a backyard gathering all the venomous creatures of the Central Plains. Soryong asked if she was really gathering all of them. He affirmed his intention, reminding her of his promise to someday gather the 10 great venomous creatures of the Central Plains. Huayin blushed deeply, offering her support, though Soryong missed the implication. He then noticed people gathered nearby and suggested they check it out. As they approached, a familiar voice greeted them. It was Gu Pei, beaming, announcing he was now Commander Gu-pei of the Poison Division. He explained it was a newly established unit under the Patriarch's orders, assigned to serve as Warrior Soryong's hands and feet, handling tasks like finding and raising venomous creatures. Soryong practically drooled at the prospect of having dedicated staff, like his own personal pet shop team. It felt like his dream was truly taking off. Far away, a white carrier pigeon landed. A serene-looking woman took the message attached to its leg. Reading it, her expression grew somber. She murmured, "Amit Ba," confirming the blood cult had returned. She looked out, sensing a bloody storm was about to rage again in the once peaceful Central Plains. A group from the Murim Alliance journeyed through lush terrain near a large body of water. An older official remarked to General Jagal that they would soon arrive at the Tang clan manor. It was a relief to escape sleeping outdoors, though Jagal lamented their fruitless search for the blood cult, wishing they had some good news. Soon, the imposing Tang clan manor came into view. A guard at the gate inquired if they were guests from the Murim Alliance. Jagal confirmed his identity. The guards respectfully thanked them for their presence and asked them to wait briefly. One guard hesitated before speaking again, mentioning there were a few things to be mindful of before entering. Jagal wondered if they needed to surrender their weapons, a custom elsewhere. The guard nervously asked them to listen, explaining the most crucial rule: no life, however small, should be taken within the clan grounds. Jagal found this bizarre, questioning if the Tang clan had suddenly embraced Buddhism. The guard insisted they would understand once inside, stressing there were absolutely no exceptions, leaving the general perplexed. Just then, Soryong arrived to greet the general. He and Huayin formally welcomed the alliance delegation. Jagal acknowledged Huayin, noting it had been a while. She confirmed it had been exactly 1 year since their last meeting at the alliance headquarters, and Jagal then asked about the Grand Patriarch's whereabouts. Huayin explained Mu Zong was currently away, searching for traces of the blood cult, and apologized for the inconvenience. Jagal brushed it off, charmed to be welcomed by one of Murim's famed 3 flowers. His attention then shifted to the young man beside her. Soryong respectfully introduced himself as Wei Soryong. The surname Wei surprised the general, who expected Tang. Huayin smoothly interjected, introducing Soryong as her betrothed. The news sent shockwaves through Jagal's entourage. The soldiers reacted with comical despair that one of the coveted 3 flowers was taken. Their collective thought bubble practically screaming, "My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined." Sensing the potential for duels if they lingered, Jagal quickly requested they be led inside. As they walked, Jagal paused, hearing an unfamiliar buzzing. His men suddenly shouted, pointing upwards in alarm. Golden-haired king bees hovered above, causing the alliance members to question why such dangerous creatures were loose within the manor. The soldiers instinctively moved to protect Huayin, drawing their swords, but Soryong quickly told them to stand down. One soldier tried to push Soryong aside, warning him the bees were lethally venomous. Soryong strained against the hold, shouting that he was raising those bees and everyone should calm down. His statement stunned the soldiers into silence. One of the fuzzy bees then landed gently on Soryong's head, nuzzling him. Soryong casually greeted the bees, asking if they had come looking for him because he hadn't been around lately. He then lightly admonished them not to shoot poison needles at their guests, treating the deadly insects like playful children. The soldiers' aggressive stances melted into sheer disbelief. Soryong and Huayin then continued leading the bewildered alliance group through the manor grounds. Jagal mused internally that the enigmatic young warrior from Hainan Island was indeed Huayin's lover, effectively a Tang's son-in-law, despite his origins. His thoughts were interrupted as he noticed something peculiar. Tang clan warriors were gathered, tending to various small creatures, even arguing about the aesthetic merits of a chameleon's crest versus a scorpion. Confused, Jagal asked Soryong about this unusual activity. Soryong explained these individuals were undergoing the venomous creature companionship punishment. Naturally, the general asked what crime warranted such a sentence. Soryong confirmed you could call it a crime, related to an incident a few days prior. He recounted how Commander Gu Pei had approached him and Huayin during training. Gu Pei had looked troubled, reporting with apologies that over half the baby rats intended as food for the tiger-striped water snakes were dead. Soryang initially assumed the sensitive rats died from stress, but Gu Pei clarified that the warriors had eaten them as drinking snacks. Soryang had been utterly horrified, unable to comprehend eating live baby rats. Huayin had dryly mentioned the three squeaks dish. As Gu Pei explained, some Hunan-born warriors got nostalgic, and things escalated before he could intervene, earning a sharp look from Huayin. This incident, Soryang concluded, showed the need for proper care and responsibility, leading to the establishment of the new punishment and rules requiring every warrior to raise a venomous creature. Jae-gal, who absorbed this information, looking thoughtful, concluding that Soryang was far from ordinary. Later, Jae-gal, who sat with Muzong and Soryang, he acknowledged he now understood Soryang was the enigmatic young warrior from Hainan, calling him a treasure to the Tang clan. Soryang felt slightly embarrassed by the praise, especially regarding the bees. Jae-gal, who then turned serious, expressing concern over the lack of leads regarding the blood cult. Muzong agreed they couldn't allow the cult's influence to spread unchallenged. Muzong then instructed Soryang to bring that confusing Jae-gal who. Muzong raised a finger, forming a chi barrier around the three of them to ensure privacy, further surprising the general. Soryang placed a simple pouch on the table. Jae-gal, who eyed it warily, asking what item demanded such secrecy. Soryang explained it was an internal energy-dissipating poison, which Jae-gal, who initially dismissed as common. Muzong smiled faintly, posing a question. What if this specific poison only affected members of the blood cult? Jae-gal, who was visibly shocked, speechless. Muzong confirmed it was true. The general immediately grasped the implications. This was an incredible discovery, potentially turning the tide against the cult. He recalled how 30 years ago, the blood cult had used a similar poison against the orthodox factions. Muzong confirmed this, explaining how regular martial artists were rendered powerless while the blood cult remained immune. Jae-gal, who asked about the potency of this new poison. Muzong relayed Huayin's report that it reduced a blood cultist's physical abilities to that of an ordinary person. He added that Huayin had defeated a poisoned elder with a single blow. Jae-gal, who was ecstatic, realizing it mirrored the effects of the poison used against them in the past. He thanked Muzong profusely, stating this gift would be a huge relief to the alliance leader. Muzong, however, directed the gratitude towards Soryang, revealing it was the young warrior's discovery. Muzong elaborated that Soryang had bravely poisoned himself and lured the elder into absorbing his blood, nearly dying in the process and taking 10 days to recover. Jae-gal, who looked at Soryang with newfound admiration, praising his remarkable wisdom and bravery. Soryang seemed slightly taken aback. Impressed, Jae-gal, who passionately offered to relay any request Soryang had directly to the alliance leader. After a moment's thought, Soryang hesitantly asked if it might be possible to obtain information about toxic creatures. Jae-gal, who stared, utterly bewildered that Soryang requested information on bugs and lizards instead of martial manuals, elixirs, or riches. Muzong chuckled beside him. Jae-gal, who conceded Soryang was truly an odd one, perhaps the most eccentric individual in Murim's long history. Mulling over the strange request, he offered information on something that might pique Soryang's interest, a mystical stone lizard. Continuing the conversation from the previous day, General Jae-gal, who recounted his expedition following Soryang's unusual request. He described a journey to the snowy peaks near Mount Gonga, where his nephew, Cheon, excitedly announced their arrival. The landscape matched ancestral descriptions, featuring a distinct waterfall near a turtle-shaped rock formation, with Mount Gonga visible in the distance. Jae-gal, who tested the water, confirming its freezing temperature originated from melting perennial snow. Instructing the rest of his party to wait, Jae-gal, who told Cheon to follow him closely. With impressive lightness techniques, They leaped across the frigid water, bounding up the rocky cliffs beside the crashing waterfall, landing deftly near the cascade. Just as the records described, they found a cave entrance concealed behind the roaring water, next to a fist-shaped rock. Gal, who expressed satisfaction that the location matched perfectly. He instructed Cheon to follow closely as he went inside first. They moved through the initial dark passage, carefully navigating the uneven cave floor. Gal, who paused, and moments later, they emerged into a breathtaking cavern bathed in soft light from an opening above, revealing a mystical garden untouched by the outside world. Gal, who noted it was the perfect environment for rare spiritual herbs to thrive. His eyes quickly found their prize, the 100 Years Snow Ginseng, glowing faintly with accumulated energy. He remarked that acquiring this herb would allow them to negotiate with the Namgung clan for their dark fleece flower, essential for healing the clan daughter's damaged meridians. As Gal, who reached for the precious ginseng, planning the next step, he was suddenly alerted by a sharp sound. A blur erupted from the nearby rocks, launching an attack of pure icy energy towards him. Cheon cried out in alarm as his uncle was forced back. Gal, who quickly regained his footing, warning Cheon to be careful, noting the attacker's extreme speed. He braced himself, blocking another volley of icy blasts with his fan. The impact revealed the nature of the attack. Frozen chi condensed into sharp projectiles, clinging to his fan. Cheon, bewildered, asked what that thing was. Gal, who identified the assailant simply as a lizard, specifically a blue-colored one that had been camouflaged among the rocks. Back in the Tang clan manor, Soryong's eyes lit up at the mention of a blue lizard, exclaiming that naturally occurring ones were incredibly rare. Muzong watched with amusement as Soryong, momentarily forgetting the danger Gal, who faced, asked if lizards were safe since they weren't venomous. He then launched into a bizarre explanation about lizards supposedly carrying poison chi in their eyes, a concept that left both Gal, who and Muzong baffled, though Muzong simply chuckled, while the general mentally filed it under Soryong's eccentricities. Despite the confusion, Gal, who promised Soryong he would be the first to know about any new toxic creature discoveries, much to Soryong's delight. The next day brought the return of Tang Keelsan. He burst into the room where the others were gathered, anxiously calling for his son-in-law. Hwain greeted her father as he rushed over, grabbing Soryong's face and demanding to know if he was all right. Soryong, slightly muffled, assured him he was fine, adding cheerfully that although he woke up after 10 days with a scar, he was alive. Hearing about the blood cult's involvement ignited Keelsan's fury. His concern immediately shifted, intensely asking if Hwain was unharmed. Hwain calmed her father, explaining she was fine because Soryong and the family had saved her. Muzong gently interjected, confirming Soryong had indeed done something incredible. Muzong playfully recalled Soryong's bold declaration to the blood cult elder, asking if it was "your natural enemy is me." Soryong blushed, downplaying it as his plan just happening to work out, though he couldn't hide his pride at discovering the blood cult's weakness. Just then, Gal, who greeted Keelsan, acknowledging their lack of contact since the general's promotion. Keelsan apologized, shaking hands. Soryong realized they were childhood friends, observing the somewhat hectic reunion. Gal, who guided Keelsan to a seat, stating they had much to discuss regarding the blood cult. Muzong instructed Soryong and Hwain to join them as well. Settling in, Keelsan immediately asked Gal, who about the progress in searching for the secret agent. Soryong looked confused, whispering to Hwain if that meant a spy. Keelsan paused thoughtfully. He reminded Soryong about the blood cult infiltrating to steal the valuable Bloodhand Poison Claw manual. Then, looking pointedly around the table, he posed a critical question. How could the blood cult have possibly known the Tang clan possessed that manual in the first place? The implication struck Soryong like lightning. He jumped up, exclaiming this was a huge problem and asking aloud if someone from their own clan could have leaked the information to the enemy. Keelsan and Gal, who exchanged amused glances. Keel-san remarked to Jae-gal that he needed to educate his son-in-law, finding Soryong's naivety about clan security rather amusing amidst the serious situation, leaving Soryong wondering if his reaction was the odd part. Hwine quietly told Soryong that secret agents simply couldn't exist within the Tang clan. Keel-san elaborated, explaining their extreme vetting process, background checks extending to distant cousins even for basic servants. If accepted, entire families were brought into the clan, their children raised as Tang members, making betrayal unthinkable. Soryong absorbed the information, understanding the depth of their security measures. Still slightly confused, he asked who the secret agent was then. A flashback showed Jae-gal confronting a terrified servant woman, her teacup shattered on the floor. The general identified her as a servant from the Murim Alliance, stating only 3 people within the alliance knew about the manual's location. He concluded confidently that the alliance leader would have already apprehended her by now. Meanwhile, as things settled within the Tang clan manor, an unexpected guest arrived at the gates. A rather rugged, muscular man grinned to the nervous guard, mentioning he'd run all the way from Hebei without using mobility arts just for fun. He cracked his knuckles loudly, demanding the guard inform the patriarch that Peng Muan, head of the Peng clan, had arrived. While the elders discussed the recent blood cult incident and the captured spy, Soryong and Hwine sparred lightly in a nearby courtyard. Feeling it best to give the seniors space, Soryong suggested they step outside for a bit, and Hwine readily agreed, sensing the gravity of the ongoing discussion. As they walked, she encouraged him to carry himself with more confidence, reminding him of his position as the Tang clan's future son-in-law, to which he nervously assented. Their stroll was interrupted by the arrival of Peng Muan and his entourage at the gate. Soryong peeked cautiously, telling himself they were likely just guests from another faction. However, the imposing figures of the Peng clan head and his burly men immediately intimidated him, forcing a hasty retreat back behind the wall. Peng Muan noticed the movement and boisterously greeted Hwine, his men eagerly looking on. Hwine returned the greeting formally, acknowledging the head of the Hebei Peng clan. Peng Muan remarked loudly on how much she had grown since their last meeting 5 years prior, a sentiment Hwine politely confirmed. The Peng clan head then turned his piercing gaze towards Soryong, bluntly asking who he was. Soryong, summoning his courage, introduced himself as Wei Soryong, the son-in-law of the Sichuan Tang clan. This piqued Peng Muan's interest. Clarifying if Soryong was Hwine's betrothed, he gave the young man's cheek a rough pinch as Hwine affirmed it. Peng Muan subjected Soryong to an intense, silent scrutiny, making Soryong sweat nervously. The large man continued his appraisal, then abruptly seized Soryong's third hand, startling him. With a booming laugh, Peng Muan declared that while Soryong looked young, his grip felt surprisingly strong. He possessed the underlying strength of a man, leaving Soryong utterly flustered by the crude compliment. Hwine covered her blushing face as Peng Muan added Soryong would be quite something in a few years. Soryong rationalized that the Peng clan disdained stiff formalities. This must be their leader's unconventional way of sizing him up. Playing along, Soryong declared that a man recognizes another man, thanking Peng Muan for the compliment. The response pleased the clan head, who laughed again, approving that Soryong wasn't like the useless heirs of other clans. Peng Muan then gave Soryong a back-breaking slap of introduction, expressing his eagerness to work together, which Soryong reciprocated despite stumbling. Hwine intervened, addressing Lord Peng. She inquired if he had truly traveled all the way from Hebei just to offer aid, perplexed by his rapid arrival from such a distance. Peng Muan looked genuinely confused, asking what help she meant, and if something had happened to the Tang clan. Flustered, Hwine quickly explained the recent blood cult attack. Hearing about the blood cult's appearance elicited a roar of surprise from Peng Muan. Later, seated with Keel-san and Jae-gal, he learned the attackers had already been defeated, much to his vocal disappointment at missing the fight. Keel-san then politely inquired about the actual reason for Clan Head Peng's visit. Peng Mawan sheepishly admitted he'd gotten sidetracked by the blood cult news, explaining he had actually come seeking the Tang clan's assistance. Taking a breath, he loudly ordered someone to be brought in to greet the elders. The door slid open, revealing one of Peng Mawan's intimidating guards. Soryong whispered to Huayin, questioning if the person being summoned was a child. The guard called for the miss to come down and pay her respects. A small, sleepy voice protested from behind him, causing Soryong to startle. Huayin leaned forward curiously. A tiny girl with hair buns, calmly licking a large lollipop, stepped into view. Her escort presented her. The child bowed politely, introducing herself as Peng Yingying of the Peng clan. Peng Mawan proudly announced she was his daughter, stunning both Soryong and Huayin into silence. They could only marvel internally at the sheer unlikelihood, thinking it was truly a miracle of genetics. Peng Mawan guffawed, noting their similar appearances always got that reaction, clearly enjoying the absurdity. He placed a hand on Yingying's head, stating she was the reason for his visit. He explained his daughter was unwell and requested the Tang clan's expertise in examining her. Keel-san repeated the word sick with concern, while Soryong listened intently, his expression growing serious, observing the young girl now munching on cookies. That night, Soryong lay shirtless in bed, his small centipedes crawling over him. Despite examining Peng Yingying and listening to her symptoms, the cause of her affliction remained elusive. He reviewed the Peng clan head's description in his mind. Yingying suffered intermittent episodes of troubled breathing, large red blotches on her skin, and occasional loss of consciousness, always recovering later without explanation. Peng Mawan had recounted his frustrating search for answers, mentioning that even the medicine sect declared her healthy, and how he'd almost pummeled a disciple for suggesting something strange. That strange suggestion, Peng Mawan elaborated, was deliberate poisoning, an idea he furiously rejected as impossible within his loyal clan. Keel-san had pointed out that if it was poison, the source might be internal, but Peng Mawan remained adamant. Jae-gal, who had advised caution, reminding them that poisoning wasn't always intentional, and Peng Mawan grudgingly agreed to stop suspecting his people. Keel-san had offered them a guest residence courtyard to monitor Yingying closely, emphasizing the need for proper diagnosis first. Peng Mawan had gratefully accepted the Tang patriarch's hospitality. Soryong's biologist mind, however, latched onto the symptoms and the girl's constant snacking, thinking it looked suspiciously like childhood diabetes, a massive sugar overload. Yet, he couldn't reconcile that with the red blotches. The lack of clear, consistent symptoms was baffling. Suddenly, frantic knocking echoed from his door. A servant burst in, looking panicked, and urgently informed warrior Soryong that something serious had happened. Soryong asked what was wrong. The servant stammered that the young lady of the Peng clan had collapsed. Under the moonlight, Soryong raced to the pavilion where Huayin and the Peng entourage were gathered around the fallen girl. Huayin explained Yingying had been sitting there, began coughing, and then abruptly fainted. Keel-san observed grimly that since she collapsed here as well, it ruled out a Peng clan spy being responsible. Peng Mawan seemed relieved, yet deeply troubled by the confirmation. Then, in a shocking display, he struck himself hard on the chest. Peng Mawan spat blood and a tooth onto the pavilion floor. He apologized profusely, declaring he couldn't forgive his momentary doubt in his own people. He insisted there must be another reason for Yingying's collapse. Following his lead, the other Peng clan members began savagely beating themselves, lamenting their failure to protect their young lady, forcing Keel-san to try and restrain them. Amidst the chaos, Huayin desperately asked Soryong for guidance. A grim possibility formed in his mind. Perhaps there was a way. Soryong stepped forward, commanding everyone to calm down. The self-flagellation stopped as they turned to him. He announced he had a method to identify the cause and prove everyone's innocence beyond doubt. Peng Mawan, still bleeding, demanded to know what it was. As a concerned group watched over the unconscious girl, Soryong stated the first step with chilling intensity. They needed to remove Lady Peng Yingying's clothes. Huayin and Keelsan stared aghast. Peng Mawan's eyes blazed with fury as he growled what? Peng Mawan stared incredulously at Soryong, repeating the audacious suggestion slowly. Soryong, caught completely off guard by the explosive reaction, barely registered the fist grabbing his collar before he was lifted violently. Consumed by rage, Peng Mawan roared, his aura flaring menacingly as he demanded to know if Soryong intended to strip his young daughter. Soryong desperately tried to shield himself, even attempting to hide one of his baby centipedes peeking out from his collar. Keelsan quickly intervened, urging the Peng clan head to calm down, insisting his son-in-law must have a valid reason. Huayin added her plea, asking Lord Peng to at least hear Soryong out first. Still gripping Soryong tightly, Peng Mawan reluctantly agreed, stating with barely contained fury that he would listen to whatever justification the boy could possibly offer for suggesting such a lecherous act towards his innocent daughter. Soryong gasped for air as he was released, taking a moment to compose himself before addressing the still fuming clan head. He quickly clarified his words. He meant they should remove all of Lady Peng's current clothing and change her into something completely new, provided by the Tang clan. He explained it was possible something on her clothes or personal belongings was triggering the collapses. Peng Mawan was momentarily stunned into silence, the realization dawning on him. Humility replaced anger as he bowed low, beginning to apologize profusely for doubting the young warrior. But Soryong quickly stopped him, attributing the misunderstanding to the shock of his daughter's collapse. Peng Mawan beamed, expressing immense gratitude for Soryong's understanding. Keelsan then announced that, effective immediately, young Lady Peng would be under the Tang clan's care, with all contact restricted, even for her father. This isolation was crucial for the diagnosis. Soryong explained that if Ying experienced the same symptoms under their control care, it would prove the cause wasn't related to the Peng clan environment. He described the method as controlled environmental adjustment, a technique familiar to breeders of sensitive creatures like insects and reptiles. Since patients, like animals, couldn't articulate the exact cause of their distress, the approach involved systematically changing environmental factors, food, bedding, enclosure decorations, to pinpoint the trigger. Soryong intended to apply this to Lady Peng, completely resetting her environment and gradually reintroducing elements to identify what caused her reactions, as simply letting her continue collapsing was unacceptable. Keelsan approved, acknowledging it might take time, but should eventually reveal the cause. He praised Soryong's good idea. Peng Mawan, though visibly pained by the separation, trembled slightly and agreed. With tears welling in his eyes, he gently held his daughter and pleaded with Soryong to take good care of her. Soryong puffed out his chest confidently, assuring Lord Peng he could be trusted. Having raised countless creatures, a little girl would be nothing in comparison. Reality, however, proved less straightforward. The moment Ying regained consciousness in her new room, she began wailing inconsolably. With Huayin and Soryong's mother-in-law gathering supplies, Soryong found himself alone with the unpredictable, crying child, feeling utterly lost. He tried guessing the cause: hunger, sleepiness, asking if she was crying because her father wasn't there. He tried to soothe her, explaining Lord Peng went to get medicine and would return soon. Ying tearfully sobbed that she didn't want her dad, she wanted sweets. Soryong recalled Huayin discovering hidden pockets crammed with candy in the girl's clothes earlier. The sweets withdrawal was hitting hard. He gently told Lady Peng she couldn't have sweets right after collapsing, suggesting rice porridge instead. He then made a bargain. If she ate well, elder brother would make her special candied fruit skewers later. Ying's tears immediately dried up, asking if he would really make them for her. Soryong promised he would, if she ate her porridge and listened well. She eagerly agreed, raising her hand in a solemn vow. She declared that the Peng clan always keeps their promises, and if she broke hers, Soryong could punch her in the face. Soryong recoiled, mentally cursing the Peng clan's unique parenting style. Over the next few days, the Tang clan manor adapted to its young guest. Peng Mawan, burdened by worry, resorted to hiding in the bushes to catch glimpses of his daughter, lamenting the no-contact rule that kept him away. Soryong eventually found the large man, lurking amongst the foliage. Peng Mawan yanked him into the bushes and anxiously asked how Ying was doing. Soryong reported she was eating well and listening obediently, mentioning she devoured an entire plate of fried pork the previous day. Peng Mawan was flabbergasted, demanding to know how Soryong managed to get her to eat when he himself couldn't. Their secret meeting was interrupted by Huayin's arrival. She greeted Lord Peng politely, thanking him for entrusting his daughter to them. She then casually mentioned that Lady Ying had been asking where elder brother Soryong had gone. Peng Mawan's expression turned thunderous. He gasped, demanding to know since when the two had become so close that she called Soryong elder brother. He lunged, questioning when this started, sending Soryong scrambling away to escape the jealous father's wrath. As Soryong fled, Huayin asked if he was heading to the training grounds again. Soryong confirmed, explaining that playing with the golden-haired king bees seemed to make Ying more cooperative. It seemed the bees were indeed quite fond of the little girl. Soryong arrived at the grounds, calling Ying's name. She ran to him excitedly, holding one of the fuzzy bees, happily calling him elder brother. Under a large tree, Ying giggled as the bees crawled affectionately over her, tickling her. Soryong mused that these creatures helped him bond with her quickly, perhaps because she'd spilled sugary syrup on herself earlier, making her irresistible to them. Hopefully, they weren't just mistaking her for a giant snack. Now aware of the bees' affection, Ying demanded daily visits. She pointed towards the queen bee, asking Soryong if they could play with her too. Soryong gently explained the queen was busy, a small price to pay for keeping Ying happy and manageable before returning her indoors. He smiled, thinking taking care of kids wasn't so bad. It felt like having a younger sister. Suddenly, Ying darted off, spotting another bee near some rocks. Soryong called out, warning her to be careful as some bees could sting, but it was too late. She cried out in pain. She got stung. Soryong rushed to her side, asking if she was okay. Examining her arm, he saw the sting didn't look too bad, but decided it was best to head to the medicine hall, just in case. He explained that sometimes bee venom could make people sick and they should apply medicine. As he spoke, he noticed a sudden change. Ying's face flushed deeply, and she began gasping for air. She clutched her chest, weakly calling him elder brother. Soryong caught her just as she collapsed. Her breathing labored, red blotches spreading rapidly across her skin. The familiar symptoms instantly clicked in his mind. He knew exactly what this reaction was. The reason Ying had been collapsing all this time wasn't some strange disease or poison, but repeated, severe allergic reactions, anaphylactic shock. Soryong recognized the terrifying signs instantly. Anaphylaxis. He understood it as a severe allergic reaction, an immune system gone haywire. Normally, the body's defenses attack genuine threats like toxins, causing inflammation, a process where histamine release dilates blood vessels, allowing white blood cells to flood the area and neutralize invaders. The problem, Soryong knew, arises when this system overreacts violently to harmless substances. Excessive histamine release causes blood vessels throughout the body to dilate uncontrollably, leading to a catastrophic drop in blood pressure, starving organs of oxygen. Symptoms like breathing difficulties and severe itching appear as the body malfunctions. In extreme cases, it could be fatal. There was no time to lose. Hoisting the small girl, Soryong urged her to hold on, sprinting across the Tang clan grounds towards the main building. He burst through the doors, yelling for his father-in-law, announcing that young Lady Peng had lost consciousness. Keel-san and Peng Mawan rushed out, alarmed by the news. Peng Mawan cradled his daughter, exclaiming in distress. Seeing Ying struggling to breathe, he immediately poured his internal energy into her small body to stabilize her condition. Gradually, her breathing eased. Soryong watched, relieved, but also marveling at the effectiveness of qi compared to modern medicine. Back in his world, treatment involved epinephrine, steroids, and antihistamines, sometimes even intubation. Here, internal energy seemingly solved everything. It was undeniably impressive. Keel-san observed that Ying's symptoms mirrored the previous incidents. He asked Soryong, who had been present, if he saw what triggered the collapse. Peng Mawan echoed the question. Soryong confirmed he had witnessed it clearly. Ying collapsed immediately after being stung by a bee. Both elders repeated the word bee incredulously. Keel-san noted that while fainting from a bee sting wasn't unheard of, it didn't explain the previous collapses. Peng Mawan added that if a bee sting were the cause each time, surely they wouldn't have made it all the way here without incident, leaving them seemingly back at square one. Soryong, however, addressed his father-in-law with newfound certainty. He declared he had actually figured out the cause. Keel-san looked surprised, asking if he was serious. Soryong explained that Ying getting stung by the bee was the final clue he needed. Before Peng Mawan could react negatively again, Soryong reminded them of his earlier, poorly received suggestion. They needed to remove Lady Peng's clothes, leading to another brief earful for Soryong. Hua-yin, having examined the girl after changing her, reported that it was just as Soryong suspected. The fresh rashes made it difficult initially, but beneath them were older marks, and now new ones had appeared exactly where the bee had stung. Peng Mawan exclaimed that Soryong was right. Keel-san's wife gently shushed them, reminding them Ying was still unconscious. Soryong confirmed the presence of additional marks beyond the obvious rash. Peng Mawan, still confused, demanded to know why his daughter had been fainting all this time if it wasn't just the recent sting. Soryong stated the cause plainly, bee venom poisoning. Peng Mawan immediately refuted this, reminding them Keel-san had just dismissed that possibility. He argued they would have noticed a bee sting, and furthermore, their residence courtyard was stone pavement with no flowers, offering no reason for bees to be present. Soryong conceded that a typical bee sting would be noticeable. Yet, her symptoms perfectly matched anaphylaxis caused by bee venom components like melittin or peptides. His mind raced, searching for another creature native to Hebei province with venom containing similar compounds. Considering the temperate climate, venomous options included vipers, cobras, scorpions, and certain ants. Snakes and scorpions were easily ruled out. Their stings or bites would be obvious. He needed something Ying encountered often, something small enough to sting unnoticed. What did Ying do often? Eat sweets. And where did she hide them? In a secret pocket in her clothes. Suddenly it clicked. He had found it. Soryong confidently reiterated his diagnosis, bee venom. Peng Mawan sputtered, pointing out again the lack of bees at his residence. Soryong explained that, as Tang clan members knew well, poison sensitivity varied drastically. Keel-san supported this, affirming that the same poison could have vastly different effects on different people. Soryong stated Ying was clearly hypersensitive to bee venom, as they had all just witnessed. The certainty remained. She was vulnerable to bee venom. If there were no bees at her home, that left only one possibility. Peng Mawan anxiously asked what that could be. Soryong elaborated that the culprit was indeed related to a bee, but a very special kind. He led the others back to the spot near the rocks where Ying had been stung earlier, confirming this should be the place. He asked Hua-yin to illuminate the ground with her lantern. The light revealed several small, black ants swarming a discarded piece of sweet Ying had dropped. They watched as one ant aggressively bit another over the prize. Soryong swiftly picked up the aggressor with chopsticks, presenting it as the culprit. Peng Mawan stared, confused, seeing only an ant. Soryong urged him to look closer, calling the insect a collateral relative of bees. Peng Mawan and Keel-san squinted. Soryong pointed out the ant's rear, revealing a disproportionately massive stinger. Both elders recoiled in shock, understanding Soryong's relative comment now. Soryong identified the insect, a king stinger ant, the tiny terror responsible for Ying's condition. Belonging to the Hymenoptera order, like bees and wasps, and the Formicidae family. Its scientific name was Pachycondyla chinensis, the Asian needle ant. Soryong continued his explanation, holding up the tiny culprit, the king stinger ant, Pachycondyla chinensis. He elaborated on its classification within the Hymenoptera order, tracing its lineage down through the Formicidae family to the Ponerinae subfamily, acknowledging the likely confusion about ants possessing stingers. He explained that these particular ants evolved from the same ancestor as bees, thus retaining many bee-like characteristics, including venom with similar properties. Studies, he added, confirmed that individuals experiencing anaphylaxis from stinger ant venom often reacted similarly to bee venom. The angry-looking ant squirmed at his chopsticks. He reassured them that the ant likely hadn't targeted Ying specifically. King stinger ants primarily preyed on other demonic creatures, and this one probably wandered and attracted by the abundance of such creatures within the Tang clan grounds. Furthermore, the sting mark itself resembled an ordinary rash, making it easy to dismiss, especially since Ying would likely forget the insignificant sting by the time she regained consciousness days later. Peng Mawan finally understood, expressing disbelief that such a pathetic little creature had caused his daughter so much suffering. He anxiously asked Keel-san if an antidote could be made. Keel-san confirmed that while antidotes for bee venom existed, they often proved ineffective against the extreme sensitivity Ying displayed. Peng Mawan's hope visibly deflated, but Keel-san added that simply knowing the cause was a significant step forward, allowing them to be cautious. Peng Mawan took a deep breath, accepting the situation, then turned to Soryong, finally offering his sincere gratitude for discovering the truth. Soryong quickly assured Lord Peng not to worry, revealing there was a way to treat Ying, albeit a slow one. Peng Mawan desperately seized Soryong's arm, begging to know the method. Soryong introduced the concept of desensitization. Seeing Peng Mawan immediately tense, fearing another stripping suggestion, Soryong hastily clarified it meant gradually making without feeling. He explained the treatment involved injecting minuscule amounts of bee venom into Ying's body over an extended period, slowly decreasing her sensitivity to the toxin, though it would take time. Keel-san recognized the principle, confirming it was a viable method similar to Tang clan techniques for building poison resistance by gradual introduction. Peng Mawan asked, full of renewed hope, if this meant Ying would truly stop collapsing once the treatment was complete. Keel-san affirmed that while lengthy, it should be possible. Peng Mawan beamed, his missing tooth prominent in his wide, relieved smile. He thanked them profusely, shaking Soryong vigorously, declaring they had saved his daughter. A sly look crossed his face. Indebted, he insisted on rewarding Soryong, offering to grant any wish. Soryong sighed internally, wondering why everyone he helped immediately started throwing around blank checks. He politely declined, stating Ying felt like a little sister now, and he couldn't expect a reward. Peng Mawan scoffed at the modesty, grabbing Soryong in a crushing grip and demanding he speak up, insisting the Peng clan didn't stand on ceremony. Soryong felt his bones creak, realizing he needed to suggest something fast. An idea sparked. Recalling General Jagal, whose earlier offer, Soryong brightly suggested that since Lord Peng had come all this way, perhaps he'd enjoy joining Soryong for a mountain tour. Soon, the three stood before the magnificent waterfall near Mount Gonga in the Sichuan province. Peng Mawan declared the scenery splendid, and Soryong excitedly added that there was supposedly a beautiful stone cliff nearby. Soryong confirmed with Huayin that, according to the general's description, this was the place with the specific waterfall and rock formation. Peng Mawan then logically asked how they were meant to reach the cave, presumably hidden behind the cascade. He recalled Soryong was new to mobility arts and likely unfamiliar with advanced techniques like wave-stepping swallow flight, a term Soryong had never heard. Peng Mawan grinned toothily, then his expression shifted. Deciding explaining was too much effort, He simply grabbed Soryang and, with a mighty heave, launched the younger warrior clear across the water like a human cannonball. Hwang cried out Soryang's name in alarm. Soryang landed, stumbling but intact, on the rocky ledge near the waterfall's base. Peng Muan landed gracefully beside him, laughing and complimenting Soryang's nimbleness, while Hwang quickly checked if he was all right. Peng Muan pointed towards the curtain of water, indicating the entrance to the cavern, which Soryang noted looked quite mysterious. With a determined grin, Peng Muan decided they'd find out whatever was inside by heading in. Leaving the bright, roaring waterfall behind, they ventured into the dark, narrow passage. As they walked deeper, Soryang felt a prickle of unease. Hwang agreed beside him. Something felt distinctly off. Emerging into the main cavern, they stopped short. The sight before them was nothing like the paradise General Jaegao who had described. Soryang and Hwang stood amidst a scene of bleak desolation. They recalled the general's words. A beam of light pouring down, countless nameless flowers in full bloom, a place mysterious and strange beyond words, a veritable paradise. Peng Muan grunted that it looked more like hell. While light did filter down from an opening high above, the ground was covered not in flowers, but in withered, dead plants and bare, thorny branches. Peng Muan scoffed at the idea of a sacred beast dwelling here, noting the palpable cold chi radiating from a massive, crystalline boulder at the cavern's center, seemingly poisoning the environment. Soryang agreed the cold seemed to emanate from the boulder. Peng Muan instructed him to stand back, but remain alert. Peng Muan cautiously approached the boulder, bracing himself against the intense chill before calling out, demanding whatever hid there reveal itself. A deafening roar suddenly shattered the silence, making Soryang and Hwang jump. Peng Muan pinpointed the source further ahead, telling them to stick close as he advanced, Soryang marveling at the roar's sheer power. From behind icy crystals near the boulder, a pair of bright, intelligent eyes peered out. The creature let out another roar, revealing rows of small teeth. It stepped fully into view, a lizard-like creature, roughly a foot long, with smooth, vibrant blue skin and a distinctively chubby tail. Its tiny, round yellow eyes blinked slowly. Soryang was instantly captivated, blushing and practically drooling at the sight. It was, he thought with absolute conviction, the cutest damn thing he had ever seen. He will become his Pikachu. Forget the 10 great venoms, he needed this. He turned excitedly to Hwang, remarking on its beautiful blue color, relieved she also recognized its worth. Peng Muan, however, looked distinctly unimpressed. He suddenly pointed deeper into the shadows behind the first creature, stating there was another one. Soryang gasped, immediately wondering if they were a pair, the possibility of offspring making his heart pound with excitement. He urged Lord Peng that they absolutely had to bring them back alive. He eagerly peered into the darkness, searching for the second creature. He spotted it lying motionless behind the first. Hwang noticed Soryang's sudden change in demeanor and asked if something was wrong. Soryang confirmed he'd caught a faint glimpse, his voice tight with concern. This wasn't good. The second blue creature lay utterly still, its mouth slightly agape. Soryang was almost certain it wasn't breathing. With the situation inside the cave assessed, Soryang turned to Commander Gu Pei, entrusting him with monitoring the entrance. Gu Pei readily accepted, promising to report any unusual activity from the rock thing immediately. For the moment, a strategic retreat was deemed necessary. Outside, around a crackling campfire under the moonlit sky, Soryang explained their caution. They knew little about the blue lizard's habits, and acting rashly risked further harming the already injured one. Later, Hwang, adorned with Soryang's tiny, chirping centipedes, called him down from his watch post to eat. The peaceful scene sparked a fleeting, sweet fantasy in Soryang's mind of a domestic future. As the stew bubbled, Peng Muan inquired about any progress with the lizards. Soryang reported the injured one remained completely motionless, which Peng Muan found unnatural for a living creature. Soryong elaborated that geckos can fast for days when stressed, and this species, like fat-tailed geckos, likely stored energy in its tail, allowing it to survive without eating for some time. However, Soryong stressed they were reaching a critical point and needed to examine the motionless lizard. Pangmawan eagerly asked if it was capture time, but Soryong clarified the goal was assessment, not capture, though perhaps offering food might entice it. He then proposed a plan, asking Lord Peng if he could lure the active lizard away. Pangmawan initially suggested simply overpowering the healthy one to grab both, but Soryong quickly dissuaded him, pointing out that Peng's immense strength would undoubtedly kill the creature instantly, perhaps even making it go splat like an overripe melon. Pangmawan laughed heartily, accepting the point with another bone-crushing, friendly grab on Soryong. They agreed on Soryong's more subtle approach. Using stick figures scratched in the dirt, Soryong detailed the strategy. Pangmawan would draw the healthy gecko's attention, while Soryong and Hwayin checked the injured one, with the Poison Division warriors blocking the path as backup. Soryong added a crucial warning. Peng needed to prevent the gecko from reaching the cave walls, lest it climb over. Pangmawan clenched his fist, ready and eager for action. Soryong hastily reminded him to be gentle as the Peng clan leader charged back towards the cave. Soryong watched him go, a flicker of concern crossing his face. The injured gecko might be running out of time. The group cautiously re-entered the cavern. The healthy blue gecko watched them, alert. Soryong signaled Peng, who confirmed he was ready, brandishing his enormous blade. Peng ordered his men into formation, and they moved swiftly. The gecko responded with a fierce roar, unleashing a blast of icy chi that exploded against the ground. Peng's men braced, impressed by the power. Pangmawan grinned, acknowledging the creature's strength as it prepared another attack. He met the next blast head-on, his eyes gleaming with fighting spirit, deflecting the cold energy with practiced ease. Seeing the gecko momentarily stunned, Pangmawan yelled for his men. This was their chance. The Peng clan warriors swarmed forward, engaging the agile lizard. Now, Hwayin urged Soryong, seizing the moment while the healthy gecko was occupied. They hurried over to the still form near the icy boulder. Soryong knelt, his expression grim. Hwayin asked if it was truly injured, and Soryong confirmed it. He quickly diagnosed severe complications from incomplete shedding, necrosis setting in at the tail tip, and a nasty infection sealing its eyes shut with pus. Hwayin worriedly asked what they could do without medicine. Soryong stated confidently that he would strip it all off. Hwayin puffed her cheeks, dryly noting his recent fondness for stripping things. We all do. Blushing slightly, Soryong insisted it was the correct procedure this time. The injured gecko twitched slightly. Soryong spoke softly, reassuring it and asking it to remain still. Miraculously, the creature calmed, seeming to understand him, much like the queen bee. He explained to Hwayin that these lizards shed skin like snakes, though they usually eat the shed, making it rare to see remnants. He noted the stuck skin was incredibly tough and began carefully cutting it away with a small knife. As the vibrant blue skin underneath was revealed, Hwayin gasped, comparing it to a gemstone. Soryong agreed the color was beautiful. He meticulously worked around the limbs and feet. Hwayin cooed over the shed skin resembling tiny gloves, finding it unbearably cute, and Soryong couldn't help but agree. He briefly recalled the oddly satisfying shedding videos from his past life. Some things just had universal appeal. Soon, only the head and tail remained covered. Soryong carefully held the small creature, warning Hwayin he needed to be exceptionally gentle around the eyes. As suspected, inflammation and pus had glued the eyelids shut. He delicately peeled the restricting skin away from the eyes, finally clearing the blockage. He gently asked the gecko if that felt better. Hwayin exclaimed as the little creature blinked, revealing clear, bright yellow eyes. Yet, Soryong's expression remained troubled. He confessed to Hwayin he was debating how to handle the necrotizing tail. Amputation was necessary to stop the spread, but he feared the weakened creature wouldn't survive the shock. As he contemplated, holding the knife near the tail, the other gecko suddenly darted past Peng Mawan's men. It turned, growling protectively at Soryong, who tried to placate it, frantically explaining he was only trying to help treat its friend, the knife still unfortunately in his hand. The healthy gecko's furious roar echoed through the desolate cave.